Salute, salute. Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Make sure you are double tapping that screen if you are viewing the broadcast, guys. We got a lot going on today, man. We got Trump basically replying to the threat issued by the Chinese president, guys, while Trump was still in China, guys, about Taiwan. See, they've been saying that the conflict with China and Taiwan is most definitely becoming stressful. I mean, China with America and China is becoming more stressful because of the situation in Taiwan, guys. Yeah, and Trump is most definitely back. Trump most definitely spoke on the entire situation, guys. And basically, responded to the threat that was sent his way, and if he took it as a threat or a warning, whichever you want to call it. What's up with it, my mother's keeper? We in the building, guys. But before we get to that, we most definitely got Trump on Air Force One today, guys, where he spoke to reporters about Iran, about China, about Taiwan, about a whole host of things that people had questions about. So let's get to that, man. This is Trump, basically addressing the media on Air Force One. And yeah, a spoiler alert. He kind of got a little mad at one of the reporters on the plane, guys. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? But we most definitely here for it, man. Shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure you are double tapping that screen if you ain't doing nothing else, as we prepare to hear what Trump had to say to reporters while he was on board Air Force One, guys. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Long-range trade deals, including over 200 planes from Boeing with a promise of 750 planes, which will be by far the largest order ever if they do a good job with the 200, which I'm sure they will. And that's General Electric also, the engines. So they're buying General Electric. So it's approximately 450 engines, 200 planes, and a promise of up to 750 if they do a good job. We had an amazing time. It was a very historic. Oh, look who we have. Hello, David. It was a very historic couple of days, I think. Really amazing.
So Trump says Trump says his trip to China was very historic, guys. That's what he said. It was very historic on so many levels, man. Make sure you're double tapping that screen. If you have not, that's how you hit that like button. Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is Trump, basically giving a quote unquote press conference aboard Air Force One, where he talks about Iran, China, Taiwan, a host of different topics, depending on what the reporters ask.
First on Iran, have you rejected the latest proposal from Iran, or where does that stand?
Well, I looked at it, and if I don't like the first sentence, I just throw it away.
What was the first sentence?
An unacceptable sentence.
Haitian.
They fully agreed. No nuclear. If they have any nuclear of any form, I don't read the rest of it.
So 20 years is not enough for you. It's got to be a permanent.
No, 20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them is not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real 20 years, not a big one.
It means you got to get all the fuel out and no more production.
You have to get everything, but we're not even talking about, I call it the nuclear dust. Came up with a term which seems to have brought on.
I'm not talking about it because they would not remove the.
Yeah, they said that they can't remove it because they don't have the technology to remove it. They don't have.
This is Trump aboard Air Force One, guys.
The only one they told me directly. They said the only one that can remove it is China or the U.S. We're the only ones with the equipment. They said you were right. It is a complete obliteration. With that being said, I want to get it. And they agreed to it, but then they took it back. But they'll agree to it eventually.
Can I ask you about Taiwan? What did President Xi say to you about Taiwan? And what did President Xi say to you about Taiwan?
You got the green light on Iran.
The arms sales.
So President Xi and I talked a lot about Taiwan. He thinks they
so we back on the subject of Taiwan, guys. Shout out to everybody in the building.
What they're doing. I mean, he's against very much what they're doing. We're talking about
Hey,
Taiwan.
Miss Paulette.
And I think we have a very good understanding with both. On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation. And I heard him out.
Are you going to say two words?
No, I didn't make a comment on it. I heard him out. I have a lot of respect for him. On Iran, it's very interesting. He feels strongly they can't have a nuclear weapon.
So he's saying that President Xi over there in China agrees with him. He said this several times that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The problem is we're not even sure if they have a nuclear weapon, Trump.
A nuclear weapon, and he wants them to open up the strait. But as he said, they closed it, and then you closed them with a smile. That is true. We control the strait. And they've done no business, literally they've done no business in the last 2.5 weeks, which is approximately $500 million a day. So we have, we're doing very well on all fronts.
Before we leave time on this, President, President Xi said that there was a risk of conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan. What's your response to that?
I don't think there's a conflict, other than we don't need their strait. We don't need the
on Taiwan, Mr. President Xi said there was a risk of conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be fine. He doesn't want to see a war. And you have two things. You have the Iranian situation, and that I think we agree almost entirely, other than he's a buyer, and we're not. We don't need it. And on Taiwan, he doesn't want to see a movement for independence. He says.
Do y'all think that Trump is talking facts or just talking through his teeth? Let me know, guys. Are y'all believing what Trump is saying right now?
Look, we've had it for thousands of years, and then at a certain period of time it left, and we were going to get it back. They had the Korean War. A lot of things happened. And all this. But on Taiwan, he feels very strongly. I made no commitment either way. We'll see what happens.
What about the arms sales to Taiwan?
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
You're not necessarily going to go ahead of this. You're proposing.
Trump is deciding whether or not. See, that's why this is such a big deal. Whether to give or provide weapons for Taiwan. China and Taiwan are into it. And if Trump provides weapons to Taiwan, then it could be a bad deal with the United States and China, guys.
Actually, I'm going to see. I have to speak to the person that right now is, you know who he is, that's running Taiwan.
Mr. President, did President Xi make any firm commitment to put pressure on the Iranians to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return. We don't need favors. We've wiped out their armed forces, essentially. We may have to do a little cleanup work because we had a little month-long ceasefire, I guess you'd call it, but we have a blockade that's so effective. That's why we did the ceasefire. We really did the ceasefire.
This is Trump, guys, aboard Air Force One earlier today, basically gaggling with the press, guys, where he answered a wide variety of questions, guys. So make sure you're paying attention. I know it's kind of hard to hear. They on the airplane. Double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you don't know how, all you have to do is double tap the screen of your mobile device. That's how you hit the like button, or you can click the 3 dots in the right hand corner and hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel, or I wouldn't keep asking.
But we did it as a favor to Pakistan, who are terrific people, the field marshal and the prime minister. But President Xi and I agree on many things, and we agree very much on trade. We're going to be doing a lot of trading. Our farmers are going to be taking in. Our farmers are going to be very happy with the deal we made.
Is it realistic that he will put pressure, that he will try and get them to
ask him to put pressure, because I don't need favors. I think he will. I think automatically he'd like to see it opened up. He gets about 40% of his energy or his oil from that, from the strait. We get none.
So he says that China said that it's a good idea for Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They get a lot of their goods or all through that way as well, guys. So Trump says that she agrees with him there that they need to open up the strait. What do y'all think?
We don't need it.
Mr. President, on Truth Social, you said that President Xi has made a reference
because we didn't hear him say that. Maybe it was something he said in private. So what was it, first of all, that he said that prompted you to do this?
He made a statement. It might not have been from him. It was somebody, but they talked about the decline. But he said today, and he said it very publicly, he said the U.S. was declining for the last 4 years. And he said what President Trump has done in the last 15, 16 months has been virtually a miracle. He said he said we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. But he said that it was a declining country.
Yeah, we got the hottest country.
He said we had a seriously declining country, which we did, with people pouring in from all over the world, from prisons and everything else. He said what President Trump has done has been a virtual miracle. It's the hottest country anywhere in the world, and it is, yeah.
On a different subject.
America, the hottest country anywhere in the world, guys.
Raul Castro could be indicted by the DOJ, I believe. What does that mean?
Well, I don't want to comment on that. I'll let DOJ comment on it. But they need help, as you know. And you talk about a declining country. They are really a nation or a country in decline. So we're going to see. We have a lot to talk about on Cuba, but not maybe for today.
Tariffs, Mr. President. Did you agree with President Xi to extend that year-long truce on tariffs?
We didn't discuss tariffs. I mean, they're paying tariffs. They're paying substantial tariffs, but we didn't discuss. You know, before I came along, it was the opposite. We didn't discuss tariffs. It wasn't brought up. Mr. President,
They say what lies?
To us that,
Y'all not believing what Trump putting down, huh?
Obviously, they've got 600 weapons now, by the Pentagon's estimate, going to 1,500. Did that come up? Did you succeed in getting them into any form of arms control? Or remember we discussed New
You're
Start?
talking about China.
China.
We brought it up. The denuclearization. I talk about it all the time with Russia and with China. And it did come up. We did discuss.
And what did you conclude?
I got a very positive response since the beginning. So, you know, we're going to be together 4 times potentially this year. We have the G20, which he wants to come to, which I'd like him to come to. It's going to be in Miami. It's going to be in Doral. And it's going to be, I think, very good. Much more important if he's there. And so you have the G20. We have one that he has, as you know, in November, right, in China. He's asked me to be there. I'm going to try and be there. And then we have another one on September, I guess, 26th or 24th, where he's coming into the White House.
I'm trying to understand what it is he committed to, if he committed anything.
Well, I don't want to say anybody committed, but we have a very good understanding.
So are you
the concept of denuclearization.
Denuclearization or just an extension?
Well, no, a denuclearization.
In other words, building down.
He went to negotiate with MAGA merch. Okay.
But the concept of that is something
Nothing is written in the lies. Let's go, guys. Shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure you guys are double tapping that screen.
China, did you bring up with President Xi any of the political prisoners in China? Are any going to be released? Any progress?
I think he's giving very serious consideration to the pastor. The pastor is said he's giving very serious consideration to that.
What about Jimmy Lai?
It's a tougher one. I did bring it up. It's a tougher one. For him, it's a tougher one.
What did he say about
I
it?
understand. For him, it's a great. He told me, I don't want to mislead anybody. He said Jimmy Lai is a tough one for him to do. You know, they went through a lot. And right or wrong, they went through a lot. So he told me that would be a tough one. He said he's going to strongly consider the best.
Sir, can I ask you 2 on technology? First, computer chips, advanced computer chips like the H200s that Jensen has. Did that come up at all with machine?
It didn't come up, but as you know, Jensen was there. He's an amazing guy, NVIDIA. And he would be inclined. You know, they have.
So this is Trump on Air Force One, guys, answering a wide variety of questions, guys. Make sure you guys are double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button. Hit the like button, guys. Get the likes up.
Much higher level than the H200. But the H200 is good. China needs it. And so, yeah, it came up. They haven't bought it. We haven't bought it, no, because they chose not to. They want to try and develop their own. But it did come up, and I think something could happen on that.
Okay. And then on artificial
They
intelligence,
have quite a bit higher level. But the H200 it's a great chip.
and then on artificial intelligence, What is it that you want to get done? Did you bring up?
We did. We talked. We're leading by a lot, but they're second, and they're very strong. And we talked about possibly working together for guardrails.
So let Trump tell it. America is leading China in the AI race, guys. Do y'all believe it? Trump says that America is ahead of China when it comes to AI. Let me know what y'all think about that.
And he's right. What kind of guardrails? The standard guardrails that we talk about all the time. AI is fantastic. So many things can happen in terms of health and medicine and operations, everything. The military, and so many things can happen, but it's also got some drawbacks, and we're talking about, we probably will. We're going to work together. We had a very good conversation about a lot of stuff.
So biological, nuclear, cyber, did you specifically discuss those risks?
We discussed, I would say, almost everything you could discuss except for a reduction of tariffs.
On Iran, Mr. President, just to be clear, I mean, what's next? Is the threat of the bombing starting again? How realistic is
I
that?
don't want to say that. I mean, I'd like to tell you. I'd like to say on a certain hour, a certain day, the bombing is going to start. I don't want to say that. I can only say that Iran, I can say this with very, very strong conviction, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Not going to happen.
Trump says as long as he can help it, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
What would the use be of repeating the bombing? You did it for 38 days.
Well, no, we did.
And you did not get the political changes in Iran.
No, I had a total military victory. But the fake news, guys like you write incorrectly. You're a fake guy. Guys like you write about it incorrectly.
Y'all hear this is where he got into it with the reporter, the fake news. Guys like you. Listen.
Changes in Iran.
No, I had a total military victory. But the fake news, guys like you write incorrectly. You're a fake guy. Guys like you
He's a
write
fake
about
guy.
it incorrectly. We had a total military victory. We knocked out their entire Navy. We knocked out their entire Air Force. We knocked out all of their anti-aircraft weaponry. We knocked out all of their radar. We knocked out all of their leaders, number one, and then we knocked out all of their leaders in the 2nd Division, and we knocked out numerous of their leaders in the 3rd Division, and they're very confused. We've had a total victory, except by people like you that don't write the truth. You know, you should write. I actually think it's sort of treasonous what you write, but you and the New York Times and CNN, I would say, are the worst.
Yeah, he gotta throw the fake news out there. You know what I'm saying? He say CNN the worst though. They get it wrong a majority of the time, according to Trump, guys.
Your editors tell you what to write, and you write it. You should be ashamed of it.
Another war. Is there any
I actually think it's treason when you write like they're doing well militarily and they have no Navy, no Air Force, no anti-anything. By the way, we knocked out 85% of their manufacturing for missiles. We knocked out everything. We haven't knocked out other than one bridge, and we did because they misbehaved. But we have bridges we could knock out. We could knock out their bridges and their electrical capacity within 2 days. We could knock out the whole thing. And then I read the New York Times, and they act like they're doing well. Everybody does it. That's why your subscribers are way down. You know, the Times subscribers are way down because it's fake news. Way down.
Oh man, criticizing their numbers, guys. He said that's the reason why you guys' sales are down so low. Fake news. That's what Trump said.
And is there any movement on that?
I did. We discussed, well, it's one that we'd like to see settled. Until last night, it was looking good, but they took a big hit last night. So it's going to happen, but it's a shame. 25,000 people died last month. Yeah.
Admiral Cooper of CENTCOM was asked yesterday about the strike on the girls' school on the first day of the war.
Oh, it's under investigation. You're talking about the original.
It was the only case of investigation at the moment into civilian
I
casualties.
think we have a couple of things under investigation, but that is under investigation.
Are you able to confirm yet that it was a US missile?
Who you with?
BBC for the radio.
Fake BBC. You mean the ones that put AI in my mouth? The
What's
ones
up,
that gave me-
paper bag?
that had me saying a statement that they now admit.
He's getting right back in there on the reporters, guys. He's snapping on this one as well. Watch him.
BBC for the radio.
Fake ones
He
that put
said fake
AI in my
BBC.
mouth, the ones that gave me, had me saying a statement that they now admit was not true, that the ones that put terrible words in my mouth and then had to admit that it was fake.
Trump
The ones
calling
that are
out the
being
fake
sued now
news,
for
guys.
$5 billion and don't know what to do. You with BBC? They're another fake outfit.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you about the deals in China?
BBC, another fake outlet, according to Trump.
And the farmers are going to be very happy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of soybeans. Yeah.
Sorry, well, we were talking about Britain, but Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister there, is in a lot of trouble. I know you were asked about this.
Well, he's in trouble for two reasons: energy and immigration. He's very bad on energy. He should open up the North Sea. He's got a coal mine, and he should open up oil in the North Sea, and he doesn't. They have a tremendous value. You know, they buy their oil, a lot of it, from Norway. Norway gets it from the North Sea. Not as good an area as Scotland and the UK has. So they're paying Norway a fortune for oil that they take out of the North Sea.
Do you think Starmer's going to survive as Prime Minister?
It's a tough thing, unless he can straighten out immigration where he's weak. And if he doesn't start drilling and stop with the windmills all over the place that are causing havoc. They're causing havoc. Most expensive form of energy. They kill the birds. They're unsightly. They're ruining the landscape. If he doesn't stop with the windmills, he's got to do energy. He's got to open up the North Sea. You know, he's got one of the greatest oil finds anywhere in the world, and he's not using it. And I tell him that. He's not using it. Should he quit? The oil companies call me every day. Please.
Trump say we're doing the best we ever did, and somebody's always calling him for some form of help. Let Trump tell it. You know, as the gas prices steady rise,
Please, we want to go to the North Sea.
as the
He
food
doesn't allow
prices
it to
steady
happen.
rise,
Should he quit?
but
I
people
don't
call
say
him
that.
for help.
I think he's a nice man, actually, but I mean, I didn't like when he said we're going to send ships as soon as you're finished with the war. As soon as but we're sort of finished militarily, pretty much. But we, you know, David, we finished probably 70-75%. We didn't finish every one of the things. We'll go back and finish them off. And by the way, and more than that.
You saw the reporting on the missile capability, missile launchers that have remained.
Yes. No, it's New York Times fake news. The missile launches are probably 80% gone. The New York Times said it's like we were hitting them like piñatas. The missile launches are largely gone. The manufacturing of missiles is about 80%, 80 to 85% gone. And we know where the rest of it is. So if we go in, we'll take that out very early.
The intelligence reports seem to indicate, though, that
There are no intelligence reports.
Appreciate it, John.
They weren't intelligence reports. They were New York Times fake news.
Sir, would you consider lifting the sanctions on Chinese oil companies that buy Iranian oil?
Well, we talked about that, and I'm going to make a decision over the next few days. We did talk about that.
Do you think Xi felt stronger in his dealings with you than he did the last time that you
Great relationship last time until COVID came along. You know, I blamed them for that. I said it was Wuhan, and I was right. And you know, look, that was a strain on everybody, COVID, and so it affected our relationship at the time. But we always had a great relationship before that and after that, and now it's as strong as ever. I mean, I went over to where he lives, which is something that rarely happens. Were you there? I don't know.
it's beautiful.
It's amazing. I mean, people have never seen it before. It's amazing, actually. We had lunch. We have a great understanding.
You don't think he feels
It's a very positive thing to have these two nations getting along.
Mr. President, on Taiwan, and you said you were going to check with the president of Taiwan, but the 1982 assurances that President Reagan gave said the United States would not consult with China on arms sales to Taiwan. So it sounds to me like you have consulted.
Well, I think
with
1982
they steady asking him basically if he's gonna supply weapons to Taiwan. They already knowing that this could cause a rift with him and President Xi of China, guys. Hey, let's take time to double tap that screen, guys. That's how you hit the like button on your mobile device, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel, guys. Double tap that screen if you don't mind. That's how you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new.
long way. It has a big far distance.
You dispensed with them.
No, I didn't say anything about it, but certainly obviously. So what am I going to do? Say I don't want to talk to you about it because I have an agreement that was signed in 1982. No, we discussed arms sales too.
And what's his request? You
We discussed the Taiwan, the whole thing with the arms sales was in great detail, actually. And I'll be making decisions.
What was his request?
I think the last thing we need right now is a war. That's 9,500 miles away. I think that's the last thing we need. We're doing very well.
Would the US defend Taiwan if it came to it?
I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say that. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is? Me. I'm the only person. That question was asked to me today by President Xi. I said, I don't talk about that.
He asked you today.
He asked you if you would send troops. If you would
He asked me if I defend them. I said, I don't talk about that.
You tell him now.
I don't talk.
Did you talk to him about the cyber attacks that he's done in the United States or the MSS has
I
done?
did, and he talked about attacks that we did in China. What they do, we do too. It's like the spying. They're talking about, the spying. I said, well,
The spying
we do it
or
too.
the infrastructure.
Look, no, I'm talking about spying.
But
The question was asked to me yesterday, I guess. What about the fact that China's spying in the United States? I said, well, it's one of those things because we spy like hell on them too. So,
what about the fact that China is putting in the U.S. infrastructure code that they could use if you ever decided to come to the
well,
edge?
you don't know that. I mean, I'd like to see it, but it's very possible that they do. And we're doing things to them. I told them we do a lot of stuff to you that you don't know about, and you're doing things to us that we probably do know about. But we do plenty. It's a double edged sword.
So again, on President Xi, a couple of years ago when President Biden met him in San Francisco, he was asked if he thought President Xi was a dictator. Do you think President Xi is a dictator?
No, but I think that President Biden was an incompetent president. He gave us the Iran nuclear deal, which allowed Iran to have a
He's
nuclear.
gonna always bring up Biden, and I bet you here pretty soon he's gonna bring up Obama as well.
Weapon
He do
within
it
a
every
matter
time.
of years from the time they said I terminated it. If I didn't terminate that, Iran would have a nuclear weapon, and they would have used it within probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If I didn't go in with the B-2 bombers 9 months ago, Iran would have a nuclear weapon, and nobody would be able to talk to them. By the way, they would have used it already.
Do you think President Xi is a dictator or not?
I don't think about it. He's the ruler. He's the president of China. I don't think about it.
Say the president of China, he don't think
I
about it.
respect him. He's very smart. He loves his country. I respect him. Whether he's a dictator, that's for you to figure out.
Mr. President, you said you didn't talk about tariffs, but did you talk about fentanyl at all?
I did. I talked about fentanyl. As you know, I put a tariff on because of fentanyl, and they discussed that. But I put a penalty. It's a penalty. A lot of money would take in because of that. I prefer not taking it, and I prefer that we don't have. But we didn't talk about fentanyl.
What kind of agreement did you come to?
Well, the fentanyl is down, way down from where it was, and it could be because of the tariff penalty.
Sir, domestic issue, if I could. Where are you on the Texas Senate race?
Well, I'll maybe make a decision. I know them both very well. I like them both a lot. And, my record of endorsements is extraordinary. You look at what happened with Indiana.
Trump always got to pat his own back. Let's go.
And out of all those races, the one that won was there were 3 Trump people in the race. If they had won, he would have won in a landslide. But I took out all of these candidates, and long-time candidates with big leads against people that never ran before. And the people that never ran before won virtually all the races. And as you know, 2 nights ago, I won every single endorsement. A week ago before that, I won every single endorsement. There's never been a record of endorsements like this, which is a great honor as far as I'm concerned.
Trump said he got a record of
It's a movement
endorsements,
the likes
guys.
of which our country has never seen before.
You might not endorse, sir, in Texas.
I don't want to say that. I'm looking at it very strongly. I like them both. I'll tell you what I do think. I think the
Yeah, he gonna
Democrats
pat
have
himself
a
on the
weird-
back every time.
A weird candidate. 6 genders. A real hit on Jesus. This guy is bad news with his mask from relatively recently. And he's a vegan. All of a sudden, he's not a vegan. He was a vegan. Now, all of a sudden, he's not. Texas doesn't like vegans. I do believe either one of them will easily win the race. I think that the candidate the Democrats have in Texas is a very flawed, very weak, I think he's a pathetic candidate.
Wow.
Especially for Texas. Okay?
Did you see Secretary Rubio in the briefing room the other day, and what did you think?
You talking about his outfit?
Yeah, that too.
I thought he looked very good in the outfit. I don't know if I'd do it, but I thought he looked very good. I think he's outstanding. I thought he was great. I mean, I saw every word of it. I thought he was.
Mr. President, back to what you were saying before about the enriched uranium at Isfahan. So, what would your logic be in having just a 20-year deal? I mean, the deal that you pulled back was 15 years. Whether they would have gotten it faster or not is up to you. But what would the difference be here?
Well, Obama had virtually no deal. Obama had a road to a nuclear weapon, and I terminated that deal.
And there you go. Obama. I knew it. It was going to be Biden and Obama somewhere in there. He can't go a press conference. He can't go a speech without saying their name.
And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama, if I didn't terminate that deal, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon 2 years ago. As you know, that deal long expired.
It was taking the most years doing it, and after your bombing, then
you know what? I'll tell you what. I know you backed Obama, which shows what a fraud you are, because that was the worst deal. They
Oh,
would have had
wow.
a nuclear weapon within a period of a year and a half after I terminated it. If I didn't terminate that, and if I didn't send the B-2 bombers in 9 months ago to obliterate, one thing that did happen, which was very nice, the top person in Iran representing them was the top person. He said, I'm the only one, meaning the United States is the only one, along with possibly China, that would be able to get the nuclear dust out of that disaster that we created with the B-2 bomber.
are you willing to do that? And why do you call
Yeah,
it?
no, at the right time, we'll either go in or we'll get it. I think we'll probably get it. But if we don't get it, we'll go in.
But you're willing to mount the operation.
Well, no, I think they'll be totally defeated, and we won't have any risk. Yeah, we have the equipment to take it out. Nobody else does. China might have the equipment. They said you're the only one. They said you and China, but they weren't. We have the equipment to take it.
Sir, did you discuss North Korea with Xi?
I did.
What came out of that?
I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. He's been pretty quiet.
Have you had any communications with him?
Yes.
Of what kind?
Doesn't matter. I don't tell
Said
you.
it doesn't
But I have a
matter.
good relationship with him. He's been respectful of our country. I want him to be respectful. He's been respectful of our country. Hey, thank you very much. Enjoy the flight, everybody. Thank you.
All right. So that was Trump basically answering a wide variety of questions aboard Air Force One. We're not done, guys. All right. So then the most talked about thing that I'm seeing is this situation with Iran, with Taiwan when it comes to China, right? President Xi issued a warning to President Trump while President Trump was in China. I don't know how they managed to do that, but yeah, he put out a warning to Trump, basically, as Trump was in China. Hold on real quick. Yeah, that's crazy, guys. Hold on real quick. All right, there we go. All right. Yeah. So for more on that, let's tap in over here to find out what that warning was, guys, that they set out there for President Trump.
President Xi are attending a state banquet in Beijing after the first day of their bilateral talks. Now, a White House official described it as a good meeting and said the two discussed Iran, trade, and energy. But beyond the pomp and circumstance, tensions are growing over Taiwan. Chinese state media reporting that Xi warned Trump that Taiwan, the democratic self-governing island that Beijing views as part of its territory, is, quote, the most important issue in China-U.S. relations and could create a very dangerous situation if mishandled. Some observers viewing that as a threat. CNN's Will Ripley is live this morning in Taipei.
Right, could cause a very hostile situation if Trump supplies Taiwan with weapons to fight China, guys. Yeah, that would mess this whole thing up.
Taiwan. It seems like this island, with China has threatened to take by force, is really emerging for China as a key issue here of the summit. Meanwhile, it's sort of the tale of two straits. Meanwhile, you've got the Strait of Hormuz also lingering there, with the president wanting China to help get that open.
Yeah, it's interesting, Sarah, because the officials here in Taipei were sort of expecting this kind of language from Xi Jinping. It didn't come as a surprise that it was the first thing that Chinese state media reported, this comment basically saying that if the U.S. and China mishandled the issue of Taiwan, it could lead to a military conflict. We've heard that sort of thing from Beijing repeatedly over the years. It is noteworthy,
absolutely,
but not
especially with
surprising
those
that
weapons.
was the first line of information that they chose to leak to the Xinhua news agency. I want to read you a little bit more of the quote that was reported by Chinese state media from Xi Jinping. He said, quote, "Taiwan independence and cross-strait peace are as irreconcilable as fire and water. Safeguarding peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait is the biggest common denominator between China and the U.S." And because they were expecting that kind of language here in Taipei, there was a response very quickly from the Taiwan cabinet spokesperson, Michelle Lee. I'll read you that as well, Sarah. It said, "China's military threat is the sole source of insecurity in the Taiwan Strait and the broader Indo-Pacific region. Continuous enhancement of defense and effective joint deterrence are the most critical factors to ensuring regional security." The reason why they talked about enhancement of defense is because one big concern they have here in Taipei is that behind closed doors, Xi Jinping could ask President Trump to either delay or stall or flat out deny a $14 billion arms sales package that Taiwan's parliament has approved, but it has yet to be approved by President Trump in Washington. It's still in limbo. That would be a major setback for Taiwan if President Trump didn't approve that package quickly, because it would basically indicate that he's willing to negotiate Taiwan's security in exchange for some sort of grand bargain. That was, of course, the big concern that Taiwanese officials expressed in the days and weeks leading up to this meeting. We heard from the Taiwan foreign minister, who said that he hoped the summit would.
That is a sticky situation to be in, guys. Trump got to decide whether he's going to back Taiwan, give them weapons to fight China, or risk losing his relationship with China and basically starting another situation with China if he gives them the weapons. Very tight spot, guys.
Bring no surprises. The deputy foreign minister said he was afraid that Taiwan could be on the menu. So even though they knew here in Taipei that Xi was going to press this claim that Beijing has had for 75 years that Taiwan belongs to China, even though Taiwan has had its own government and its own military the entire time, and also, by the way, happens to have the production of nearly all of the world's most advanced chips that are crucial to the United States' deep investment in AI. Without Taiwan, the entire tech economy would essentially collapse if the supply chain were disrupted. So Taiwan knows that they have that leverage. They're hoping that President Trump keeps that in mind when he's in talks with Xi Jinping and doesn't send the message that Taiwan's security is up for negotiation.
While President Trump praised President Xi, the Chinese president warned President Trump today that the U.S. and China could clash over Taiwan if the issue wasn't handled properly. Are both leaders further apart on the issues that Trump would like to acknowledge?
Certainly on that one, Wolf, there's no question, at least historically on the U.S. posture, we have not heard President Trump say much about what he thinks of what could happen with China and Taiwan and the U.S.'s role going forward. And so it's interesting that President Xi, made this quite clear at the outset. The prospect of a clash of China taking over Taiwan or attempting to take over Taiwan, and then what does the U.S. do? And it has all kinds of implications in terms of semiconductors, in terms of chips manufacturing and so forth, that we don't quite know what this looks like in a Trump 2.0. I will be interested to see if President Trump discusses much of what he actually thinks on that front publicly. As much as President Trump often seems unable to help himself from blurting certain things out, there are areas where he tends to keep his own views a little more closely held, and I suspect this is going to be one of them, but we'll see.
With us now is Congressman Mark Alford, a Republican from Missouri. Congressman, always great to see you.
What will Trump do, guys? Will he supply the weapons or not?
Quote, if it is not handled properly, and this is he's talking about the Taiwan issue here. If it is not handled properly, the two countries may clash or even come into conflict, pushing the entire China-U.S. relationship into a very dangerous situation. So some see that as a warning or a threat from President Xi. You care deeply about Taiwan. You have been there, traveling there in the last couple of years. What do you think the clear U.S. statement on Taiwan should be?
Well, John, thanks for having me on. Look, we have had since 1979, the Taiwan Relations Act from Congress, a policy of strategic ambiguity. We're not saying they're an independent nation, but we're not saying they're part of China either. We don't have an embassy there. We have an American Institute of Taiwan. I've been there. It's a very beautiful facility. But Taiwan is important to us. It's important for their chip manufacturing, for drone capabilities. Our partnership with Taiwan is important, but also our partnership, a burgeoning partnership, it looks like, between Trump and Xi and this new era that Xi has described is also important. We've got to make sure that trade continues. We've got to make sure that we are able to export our Missouri soybeans and pork to China. And Taiwan also, of course, is buying some of those as well. It is a delicate tap dance at this point. But look, in the appropriations process,
if Trump gives Taiwan them weapons, it's going to be trouble.
Excuse me. In the appropriations process, just 2 weeks ago, under the full committee for appropriations, we appropriated $500 million for Taiwan in foreign military financing. That is up from $300 million just 1 year ago. So I think we're sending a signal to Taiwan that we value them, but we also value President Trump's initiative to better relations with China.
Would you want those better relations to come at the expense of any reduced arms sales to Taiwan?
No. Taiwan needs to be ready for what could happen. And under our strategic ambiguity, the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act, we have committed to not necessarily aid in their self-defense, but give them what they need to defend against any aggression from China. And that's very important that we live up to that.
Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Coons from Delaware. He sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Thanks for being here, Senator. I appreciate it. Xi Jinping saying this about Taiwan, according to state media. The Taiwan issue is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations, and also saying if mishandled, the two nations will experience collision or even clashes, pushing the entire China-U.S. relationship into a highly dangerous situation. Do you see that as a threat from Iran?
Absolutely, Kate. That's a threat from Xi Jinping. And our challenge is that we have a distracted president and a distracted Secretary of Defense. I'm the senior Democrat on defense appropriations. And when we had Secretary Hegseth in front of our subcommittee this week, I really pressed him on what's the plan to end this war in Iran and to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians have just made a next strategic step, which is allowing Chinese supertankers full of oil to cross the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, 2,000 other ships critical for fertilizer, for fuel, for gas are still stuck because Iran has the ability to hit them at any time with cheap and lethal drones. So Xi, in some way, metaphorically, has us over a barrel. And Trump has gone into these negotiations in the weakest position of any modern president because he promised to lower our costs when he ran for president. Instead, the price of gas is going up. The price of groceries is going up. Inflation is going up. And China,
which is exactly what I said a while ago,
has been increasingly aggressive in the last year, Kate, around the Strait of Taiwan, transiting all of Australia with a naval flotilla for the first time, crossing the midline on an almost daily basis, and threatening Taiwan with rehearsals of a military blockade or invasion. So this is a very tenuous moment, Kate, and I'm concerned that President Trump will make concessions. In exchange for a temporary benefit, like buying more soybeans, he will give up licensing our most advanced AI chips. The CEO of NVIDIA, the American company that makes the most advanced chips, joined this trip at the last minute. And I'm concerned that a chips for beans deal would actually be a strategic loss for the United States.
Okay, so
let us
that
bring
was
in.
that was a little bit, on the situation with America, China, and Taiwan, and a little bit about the warning that was sent out to President Trump from President Xi while President Trump was still in China. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. Here's a little bit more on that entire situation with Taiwan, guys, and China.
On some of those guardrails as we speak. The president also says that tariffs never came up. Talking with Sean Hannity, President Trump believes he threw off the Chinese President Xi by surprising him with the world's leading CEOs and business executives.
I'd like to introduce them to you, and they were surprised because it wasn't scheduled. Those business people are here to make deals and to bring back jobs. They're bringing back massive numbers. China's going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars with those people that were in that room today. That's why they came. That's why they came.
Out of the discussions, the president says that he secured China buying more agriculture from the U.S. and reconfirmed their commitment to buy 25 million tons of soybeans this year through 2028. The president on Air Force One also saying that he made a lot of really good trade deals that went beyond just planes for the airline industry.
In my general experience, so it's approximately 450 engines, 200 lanes, and a promise of up to 750 if they do a good job.
So the president positioning the U.S. to make sure that China refuses to help Iran and pressures to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He also says he's not asking for any favors on that because that means he would have to give a favor. The Chinese warned the U.S. to change the way the administration talks about Taiwan. On Air Force One, the president says that he made no commitments. Maria?
All right, Edward, thank you so much. Edward Lawrence at the White House this morning. And joining me now is Fox News contributor and former senior counselor to President Trump, Kelly.
It could turn into a bad situation for real, guys.
I think just the fact
Shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure you guys
Trump
continue to double tap that screen.
Together, one-on-one, face
How
to
you hit
face,
the like
was a
button.
positive. It shows the world that they're trying to better the relationship here. But what is your reaction to the deliverables here and how this trip went down?
Maria, this was a successful trip for America and the American president. He maintains his posture and position and insistence as the America First president. That's why Taiwan may be China's red line, but the president didn't capitulate or even negotiate about Taiwan. Last year, he set a record, $14 billion in weapon sales to Taiwan. Another $11 billion is sitting on his desk. So we'll see what he does with that. But also, Taiwan is not just about tech. That would be one thing. It's a national security, economic security issue for us. I mean, they produce the overwhelming number of semiconductors in this country, AI, defense systems. And I think the president getting commitments to buy these Boeing aircraft, soybeans, other goods and services is incredibly important. The other thing I took from this, Maria, is that if China is saying, hey, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, well, now we have the two superpowers presidents agreeing on the fundamental premise for going to war in Iran in the first place.
If he really said that.
They can't have enriched uranium and nuclear capability because all the polls show an overwhelming majority of Americans believe that if Iran were to get a nuclear weapon, God forbid, they could use it against America and the rest of the world. I think this was successful also because it shows China still needs American innovation, American manufacturing. I think it also needs the financial and industrial titans that were there in the room ready to make deals. Nobody's looking past political prisoners like Jimmy Lai or the political persecution of the Uyghurs or Taiwan in the crosshairs militarily of China. Nobody's looking past the fact that they produce fentanyl, and that's the number one killer of 18 to 45-year-olds in this country as we speak today. But at the same time, the president, with China, President Trump does the trust, but verify, but also get them to buy our goods and services too.
Well, that's right. And, the president tried to get Xi Jinping to buy oil He said that he's going to look at it. Maybe he will. He said he's going to send Chinese ships to Louisiana and Texas. That would be a big, big victory for the president. But you're right. The president said he made no comment and no commitment on Taiwan. He's talking right now on Air Force One. So we've got more breaking news this morning. He said that Xi wants no movement on the island's nation's independence. Obviously, Xi Jinping tried to really run the table as soon as the president got there and say that any mishandling would mean a dangerous situation in terms of conflict potentially between the U.S. and China. But I want to get your take on the midterm elections and what all of this is going to mean then, because I just had a conversation with Ro Khanna, the California Congressman, Kellyanne, and I specifically asked him if they get the majority in November, will they move to reverse President Trump's agenda? And actually, we're looking at Trump right now earlier in Beijing, and they're talking about trees, and they're beautiful, very old trees in China. So that was very much an honored moment that President Trump just had with Xi Jinping in the forest there with the trees. But in terms of the Ro Khanna conversation, what did you make of that, Kellyanne? Because he was very clear. He said, yeah, we don't want, the high end, the highest earners to not pay their fair share. I made the point that obviously the richest people are paying the majority of taxes, but they will move to reverse President Trump's agenda should they gain the majority in November. And that means no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime.
And I would add to that, Maria, we'll do away with the 100% expensing of factories and facilities and depreciation that are really powering so many of our businesses, our employers, including, or especially, Maria, small businesses, which are still the main engine of job creation and wealth generation in our country. Look, he told the truth where a lot of liberals won't. They're obsessed with impeaching President Trump, investigating President Trump, his family, his allies, his advisors. But Ro Khanna basically admitted the Democrats also want to impeach the gains that we, the people, have realized through this second term of Trump's presidency. That's incredibly important. I want people to listen up, because if you're an independent on the fence, if you don't even think your vote counts, you've got to go back and look at what exactly they're going to reverse. The energy independence and dominance. We don't want the Democrats in charge and make us energy dependent again. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Ro Khanna's party, Maria, they made us energy dependent on these foreign dictators. They had a war on fossil fuels, on oil.
There she goes. She got to be part of Trump
camp. LNG permits. All that did was enrich and empower Vladimir Putin to supply energy around the world, including to China, including to Europe. And so take him at his word. They're not just going to try to impeach Donald Trump. That would be odious enough. They're going to try to impeach all of the gains that have affected so many of us.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think every committee will be an investigative committee and to try to impeach the president and stop his agenda. But I do appreciate my conversations with Ro Khanna. You're right. He's honest and he says what he really believes. And even, like I said to him, do you agree with Kathy Hochul taking the threshold down for second homes in New York? Because Mamdani wants to put a pied-à-terre tax on anybody who has a second home in New York that's valued at $5 million. But Kathy Hochul is going to take that threshold down to $1 million. That's going to impact a lot of people in New York. If you have a second home and it's valued at $1 million. And I said, do you agree with that? And he said, yes. So, I mean, look, we've got a completely different way of governing. Democrats and Republicans. I mean, you've got Georgia Governor Brian Kemp now calling for a special legislative session in June to redraw the congressional lines ahead of the 2028 election cycle. That follows the Supreme Court's ruling, which struck down racial gerrymandering, triggering many other Republican-led states to redraw their maps, Kellyanne. And I want to get your take on this as well. Again, around the midterms.
Thank you, guys.
How do all these new maps play out? Do you think this is actually turning out to be a positive for Republicans?
It is. Right now, it's an advantage to the Republicans because they've just been smarter and more savvy and not as ridiculous as the Democrats. Look what the Democrats did in Virginia alone. I know we've discussed it before, Maria, but it's worth revisiting because they spent upwards of $80 million to scream about affordability, and they wasted $80 million going too far, going from a 6-5 map Democratic favorite.
She got to
to a
be
10
one
to
of Trump
1.
people.
The Virginia Supreme Court knocked it down immediately, and now they're whining about it. What the Republicans have done is much more deliberate, much more, I think, structurally sound. The Democrats only like gerrymandering when it benefits them. They've consolidated power now in New York and Illinois and California through redistricting. But right now it's benefiting the Republicans with more states to go. After the Supreme Court decision at Calais, you have Florida, now Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, all these states
By what she's
following
saying.
the lead of a Texas, for example, that was already doing redistricting. So I think it's, look, what the Voting Rights Act case basically said is we don't need that, the 1965 Act, to redraw these districts. What Louisiana did, it made it overly ridiculous. So I think this is important. What Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, our 8th most populous state, 11.5 million people live in Georgia. This is incredibly important. He's doing 2 things with this June 17th special legislative session. One is redrawing those maps ahead of 2028. And remember, Georgia was a big hot mess in 2020. It was the first year they had the Dominion voting machines. Now, and now they're going. The second thing he's doing is the procedural part. So they're supposed to change the way they vote and count that, record that vote through QR codes. And he's trying to get the process in place also for all 159 counties. This is smart. This is leadership because Brian Kemp, I think, has done a fantastic job as the governor of Georgia. Yeah. He denied us, thank God, he denied Stacey Abrams not once but twice the governorship, saving us all from that debacle. But now he's looking at the process. And Maria, that's my message too. I like the way Republicans are now doing what Democrats always did, which is invest in the non-sexy parts of politics. Yeah. You can't just have these ads on network TV nobody's watching and the consultant's getting 20%. You have to invest in the mechanics. And the Trump team is doing that. The Republican committees are doing that. That's how you win or lose elections.
Well, they're also, I mean, I don't know if the Republicans are doing this, but Trump is certainly all over social media trying to, speak to young people. I mean, the White House released this graphic this morning showing President Trump's popularity skyrocketing on TikTok and on other social media. 400 billion views on TikTok alone, Kellyanne. And this is.
So Trump is popular on the internet. But I think by the way of the people, as far as the way he's running the country, not so much. The last time I heard he was down in the popular vote. I could be wrong though, but this is what they saying.
Just Trump on TikTok, and I know, he uses the service and others do as well. Are the Republicans doing enough actually to get the word out and to try to explain what they've actually done well? And that the agenda is in jeopardy should voters not come out in November for the midterms?
Yes, I think that it's all about communicating in 2026 what the Republicans delivered in 2025. It was a busy year policy-wise. The president has provided a blueprint, really an electoral map, literally and figuratively, for these Republicans running on what to run on. But they need to go out there and crow about that. They need to say, look, not a single Democrat voted to lower your taxes, to preserve that 21% corporate business tax that allows them to invest in innovation, including AI, invest in inventory and factories, facilities, and the workforce. Raise those wages voluntarily, not because some city tells you have to. They need to talk about energy independence, dereg, all those great things, and also do healthcare and housing to win in November.
All right, Kellyanne, great to catch up. Thank you so much. Kellyanne Conway, stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, so now, since we heard it from everybody else, you know what I'm saying? We heard how other people feel about this. Let's see what Trump had to say about all of this in the exclusive interview that he gave to, hold on, let me make sure. All right, to Fox News, guys. Let's go here.
Beijing and our conversation with the President of the United States. Mr. President, you pushed redistricting, and after some really big wins in courts, including the Supreme Court, contested districts are now tilting to Republicans. It looks like they've picked up a number of seats, at least on paper. Do you think that makes the difference in holding the House?
Well, it helps. I mean, I don't know the difference. I think I think a bigger difference would be if I win quickly as opposed to after. But again, I'm not going to let the election determine what's going to happen with respect to Iran, because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Okay.
Keep saying they can't have a nuclear. Hold on.
If that price went down. Look, prices are.
He keeps saying they can't have a nuclear weapon, but are we sure they was even trying to build a nuclear weapon, guys? Make sure you guys are double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button, man. Double tapping the screen of your mobile device or clicking the 3 dots in the right-hand corner and clicking the thumbs up, guys. Let's get these likes up. Double tap that screen if you don't mind. It helps out the channel as we find out how Trump feels about the situation with China, Taiwan, you know, and the warning that was sent to him while he was still in China. Let's go.
Down, but the energy caused it to go up. And I said to my people, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to screw up your numbers for a little while because we have to stop the nuclear weapon stuff with Iran because they're nuts. They're sick people. Even if they weren't sick, you wouldn't want it to happen, but they're crazy. We're going to take a little curve. We're going to diverge down the pike, and we're going to hit them, and we're going to stop them. And essentially, we have really put them on hold. We'll do it as quickly as we can. I call it a little pain. Look, I agree. The oil goes up, but it's going to come down lower than it was. It'll be down lower than it was. Now, speed. I hate to talk about speed.
I understand.
Because I don't like putting pressure.
Trump said when it comes to the oil and gas, when this is over with Iran, the gas and the oil will be the lowest it's ever been. That's what Trump said.
On all of the people. I want to do the job right. If it takes an extra 4 weeks, but think of it. We're in Vietnam for 19 years. I'm here. I'm doing this for two and a half months.
There are people on one side that say, well, let's go again. Let's finish the job. Let's keep going.
I have
There's
two
the
sides.
people on the other side say,
There are a lot of questions surrounding this conflict going on in Iran, guys. A lot of people feel like we shouldn't even be there. They saying that Trump went off a hunch, you know, and basically a personal vendetta. That's why we're in Iran in the first place. A lot of people feel like we shouldn't even be there.
Out, and
all good people.
November, which is coming, the approval's upside down.
I think
you're not on the ballot, but do you think that this war and this moment is going to affect your ability to hold the House and Senate?
So yesterday they had 18 elections. I won all 18. Everybody I endorsed won. 2 weeks ago, in a very big event, Indiana had like 8 people that had never lost an election. Some were in for 25 years. They had a 40-point lead, but they didn't want to they didn't want to give some additional people in Congress. Very simple.
Redistricting.
And I said, you know what? If they don't want to redistrict, they're not for us. And I ran candidates that nobody ever heard of, but good people. And everyone won, other than one because 2 or 3 people ran. Actually, it was very smart. But I won every one of them. CNN did a poll.
So Trump feeling like he's still good because the people that he endorsed, everybody won. That's what Trump said. All the people he endorsed, they all won, which means that he's still doing good in the polls too. I guess that's how he feels, seeing that he endorsed each and every one of the people that won.
Recently, that said, I'm 100% approval in the Republican Party with MAGA, which is most of the Republican Party. So I think it's almost all of it now, actually. I'm at 100%. And Harry, whatever his name is,
Enden.
Nice guy, Harry Enden, was jumping up and down.
But you think you're
he's
going to
never
win the
seen
midterms?
I don't know. I can't tell you because a couple of factors. They got to pass the Save America Act. I really believe that's important because the Democrats cheat. This will keep them from cheating. It'll make it much harder for them to cheat. Without cheating, they can't win because they have things like open borders where criminals can pour into the country. Men playing in women's sports so ridiculous. These are.
She said this man is a pathological liar, boy. Hey, look. She is not rocking with Trump, man. She say he is a pathological liar. She don't believe a word coming out of his mouth. How y'all feel? Is Trump telling the truth?
88% issues. You know, the fake news says, oh, these are 80-20. They're not 80-20. Transgender mutilization of your child. These are the things that they support. So the one negative, and nobody can explain it, every president, Republican or Democrat, who wins the election, even if you win by a lot. I won in a landslide. I won every swing state. Even if you win a lot, and even if you do a good job, and everyone says, look, we have the highest stock market price ever, all of the things that I went over before.
Right.
We have the best employment in the history of our country. But even if you have a good president who's done a good job, they always lose the midterms.
On Cuba, you said Cuba is hurting and ready to make a deal. The CIA director was there Thursday. China's been active there. They've had a deal with Cuba about renewable energy project. They're
not there anymore.
92 solar farms.
Well, they're not there anymore.
So is Cuba going to turn to us and make a deal?
I think so. I mean, look, I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy. They've been saying, what's going on with Cuba? And I think we'll be turning it. Marco's been very effective, and the whole group has been very effective. It's I think they're going to have to come to us. It's a failed nation. It's a totally failed nation.
And they're taking the aid now.
Yeah, they're taking the aid. They want aid. They need help. They need help. I think about all those Cubans. 94% voted for me. The ones that were thrown out, families were killed.
Now, from what I hear, Trump has plans of basically going at Cuba. I heard him say it's a possibility after he's done with Iran.
Very violent, and they're living in our country right now. And I have never seen people happier than them. They said, this is what we voted for. I think about those people. Maybe I think about them first, but I think about the people in Cuba. And, you know, the people living here, they want to go back and they want to invest in Cuba. They want to bring Cuba back, et cetera, et cetera. It's a good thing. We're going to give them that option.
Let me end with this. Back here in China, any talk about human rights? There was some hope that you were going to get Jimmy Lai on the plane to Air Force One.
I talked about it. I talked about it at length. I talked about Jimmy Lai, and I talked about two other people that...
The pastors, the religious folks?
I talked about the pastor.
How was it received?
You know, I have gotten hundreds of people out of different situations. Pastor Brunson was a big deal. You remember Pastor Brunson? He was in Turkey. 35-year term. I got him out. I called President Erdogan and got him out.
Can we get 30 more people on that like button, guys? If you just now tuning in, double tap the screen of your mobile device. I mean, how you're viewing me, double tap the screen of your mobile device. That's one way to hit the like button. Or you can click the three dots in the right-hand corner at the top and hit the thumbs up, guys. Let's get the likes up to 100. Shout out to everybody in the building, man. This is President Trump in his own words, speaking on the situation going on with China, Taiwan, you know, and basically the threat that was sent to, warning that was sent to him by President Xi, why in fact Trump was still in China, guys. Double tap that screen. Let's get the likes up. Can we get 30 more likes? Let's get the likes to 100, guys. Shout out to everybody in the building.
Gotten hundreds of people out.
This pastor.
And by the way, I don't pay a lot of money. I don't pay any money like Biden, where they give $6 billion all the time to get people out. I brought him up yesterday.
How is that received?
It's under consideration. I will say that I brought up Jimmy Lai, and I would say the response to that was not positive. He said that he's been, said it's been sort of his worst nightmare. It was,
opposition.
He went through a whole
Thank you
thing.
for the gift, OG.
And I said, well, would appreciate if you would release him. He's gotten old and he's probably not feeling too well.
Thank you.
And I did not feel optimistic. I have to be honest with you about that one. I did feel optimistic about the second.
Let's go,
one. It's now
OG.
under consideration.
77 stars. Thank you, OG.
Yeah.
And I put him
steady
down.
climb.
Made a point of it. I mentioned Jimmy Lai again, second time. And I'd like to tell you that I'll be flying him back on Air Force One, but I won't be doing that. The other one, I think, will maybe get very strong consideration.
But as you do fly back on Air Force One, you feel like this was a success.
Fantastic success. The relationship, look, with two very powerful countries. I call it.
My question is, what was accomplished?
G2. There's nobody comes close. We are more powerful than China. We were heading in the wrong direction. We were going to be a failed nation. We were doubling our welfare, and nobody was investing here. We have $18 trillion coming in. I mean, I was congratulated by President Xi in front of both groups. he said, I've never said anything like it. I like him, he likes me. That's a good thing. You know, you have two very powerful nuclear nations, and having good relations at the top is very important. We've known each other for 11 years now. You know, we've been dealing with each other for a long time.
And you'll have him to the White House in September.
He's going to be coming in September or November, sometime, but I think they've set a date, September 24th, something like that. And it'll be an honor. We're going to do a fantastic job, just like they did here. People that study this said there has never been a celebration like they had over the last 2 years in China with a foreign leader coming in. There's never been anything like it. He went all out, from the children to the military. What a beautiful group of military that was. But there's never been, and last night's event was incredible, actually.
Mr. President, we appreciate that.
They most definitely put on a show for Trump, guys, but he wasn't done there. There's still more. We got more from this same interview where Trump basically spoke on it all when it comes to China and Thailand. Guys, let's go here.
As you get ready to head back to Washington, what's the most significant, specific thing you walk away from here for the U.S.?
I think the most important thing is relationship. It's all about relationship. I have a very good relationship with President Xi and with China. And it sounds like something that doesn't mean anything, but it's everything. In deal making and problems we've solved, the two of us have solved a lot of problems that somebody else would have maybe done very badly with. We've solved a lot of problems over the years. We have a very good relationship. Trade has been very strong. We're getting a lot of soybeans for our farmers. We're doing a lot of, there's a lot of things happening for the farmers. He committed to 200 Boeings, big ones, 777s and 737s, and a lot of big ones, big, beautiful Boeing planes, 200, that's a lot. With a commitment that if they do a good job, and I told this to Boeing and General Electric, we're going to go to the General Electric engines, which are great. If they do a good job, we could go up to 750.
So he most definitely was trying to get them to do investments, huh? 18 trillion in investments to America. Way to go, Trump, Donald J. Trump. So they saying that China is looking to basically invest $18 trillion into the U.S.
And that's obviously a lot of
Trump say he accomplished it.
You know, some Democrats, even some Republicans, had some concerns about Chinese manufacturing on U.S. soil. Is that happening?
Well, if they don't want to pay tariffs, it could happen, just like it's happening with other countries and companies. We have now more money being invested in the United States than any country at any time in the history of the world, including China, which probably is second from about 10 years ago. We have $18 trillion in 11 months, not the 12th month hasn't come in yet, the numbers. We have $18 trillion. If China—
Thank you for the coin, Miss Motown. Thank you.
China wants to come in and wants to avoid tariffs. If they build here, for the most part, they're going to be hiring American people. If they want to avoid tariffs, they're going to build in the United States.
Despite concerns about China operating inside the
Look,
U.S.
we have Japan is building massive Toyota, Honda, all of them. I mean, they're building massive plants all over the country. So if China wants to build for their cars, now I will tell you, I put 100% tariff on Chinese cars because I didn't want them coming into the country. If you take a look, only because they swamp you, they'll destroy your auto industry, and that's what's happening in Europe. And now they're saying we have to do a little bit like Donald Trump. Europe is being killed. They're being absolutely swamped by hundreds of thousands, millions of Chinese cars, and Mercedes and BMW and Volkswagen, they're getting killed. So if you notice, we haven't had that problem. You know why? Because I have 100% tariff on cars made in China.
And even though the Supreme Court ruling, you're going to still continue that tariff.
The ruling was just on a specific type of
I was just going to say that, man.
Correct.
Even though the Supreme Court says that some of these tariffs are illegal, guys, Trump says he's going to keep slashing the gas with 100% tax on China. You know what I'm saying? You say 100% tax. Lord, we 9 likes away from 100, guys. We need 9 more people to double tap their screen. If you have not, get the likes up. double tap the screen of your mobile device or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, guys. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel. If you are new, we on the road to 64K. We need all the subscribers we can get. So subscribe, guys.
Have the right to do the same tariff in, frankly, a little bit more complex way, but it's actually a better tariff. It's a more stringent tariff.
I want to ask you about Iran and AI, but China made clear that Taiwan is very important to them. And after your first meeting here, President Xi's spokesman put out a statement to the media, through the media, saying this: the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. If it is handled properly, the bilateral relationship...
So this is the warning that was put out while Trump was still in China, guys. Check it out.
...will enjoy overall stability. Otherwise, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy. You were still inside the meeting when that came out. That sounded...
He was still inside the meeting, guys.
Communicated that.
Did y'all hear? He was still inside the meeting. When they issued this and put this out, Trump was still in China in the meeting, guys. He didn't even know it was out yet.
President Xi's spokesman put out a statement to the media, through the media, saying this: the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. If it is handled properly, the bilateral relationship will enjoy overall stability. Otherwise, the two countries...
This warning basically says, hey, don't give Taiwan no weapons, or the U.S. and China will be at odds. That's basically what it say. We're gonna battle it out.
Have clashes and even conflicts,
Great
putting the
jeopardy.
entire relationship in great jeopardy. You were still inside the meeting when that came out. That sounded almost like a threat. Was it communicated that way behind closed doors?
No, it wasn't, not at all. But it has always been their most important issue. And it's not a takeover. They just don't want to see this place, we'll call it a place because nobody knows how to define it, but they don't want to see it go independent. They don't want to do it. And I think they probably would do something pretty harsh, and then they would be met harshly, and bad things will happen.
He's saying bad things will happen.
We talked, by the way, last night, we talked the whole night about that issue. I know more about Taiwan right now than I know about almost any country.
You think it dominated the talk?
It's always been his most important thing from the day I knew him years ago. I've known him now 11 years, 12 years. It's always been the biggest thing for him, Taiwan. Now, with me, I don't think they'll do anything when I'm here. When I'm not here, I think they might, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I'm not sure that they do anything.
Trump said if he's not in office, China might try to pull something. He's confident they won't do it while he's president. But if he was to leave office, he's saying that President Xi might try something with the U.S. Do y'all think he's telling the truth, or do y'all think he's just talking out the side of his neck? Let me know. Is Trump keeping Xi at bay? Let me know.
Remained as is, but they have somebody there now that wants to go independent. Well, it's a risky thing when you go independent. You know, they're going independent because they want to get into a war, and they figure they have the United States behind them. I'd like to see it stay the way it is. And I'll tell you something, I'll make a little news. I'd like to see everybody making chips over in Taiwan come into America, because to be honest with you, I think it's the greatest thing you can do.
He's trying to stay in office, I hear you.
There's no question about it. And as you know, we have massive amounts of chip companies now from Taiwan already coming in. We expect to have 40 to 50% of the world chip business by the end of my term. And I think it should be even more than that. I think all of those chip companies, if they're smart, they're going to start heading to Arizona and the places where they're building. That's going to solve your problem.
Should the people of Taiwan feel more or less secure after your meetings with President Xi?
Neutral. This
has the policy changed?
They said he said neutral. They should feel neutral, guys. He didn't accomplish that.
Have somebody go independent, and we're supposed to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war. I'm not looking for that. I want them to cool down. I want China to cool down.
But you're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons for Taiwan.
That's right.
Is that moving forward?
Well, I haven't approved it yet. We're going to see what happens.
What are you looking for?
I may do it. I may not do it.
Yeah. What's your hinge point?
Well, I'm not going to say that, but I may do it. I may not do it. But we're not looking to have wars. And if you kept it the way it is, I think China's going to be okay with that. But we're not looking to have somebody say, let's go independent because the United States is backing us. You know,
So President Xi probably liked that you haven't approved the weapons to Taiwan.
I would say like is maybe too strong a word because he thinks I could do it with just the signing of my signature, unlike Biden who couldn't sign his.
Yep, there go
signature.
Biden. He got to say his name every
No,
time.
I'm holding that in abeyance, and it depends on China. It depends. It's a very good negotiating chip for us, frankly. It's a lot of weapons. It's $12 billion. It's a lot of weapons. But, you know, when you look at the odds, China's a very, very powerful, big country. That's a very small island. It's, you think of it, it's 59 miles away, 59 miles. We're 9,500 miles away. That's a little bit of a difficult problem. With all of that being said, you know, if you look at the history of Taiwan, Taiwan was developed because we had presidents that didn't know what the hell they were doing. Because if they would have put tariffs on chips coming in, they would have never left. Everything was about Intel, and everything was about our chip companies. They stole our chip industry. So I've said that for years. I said, you know, for years they stole our chip. If we would have had one of our presidents just say, we're going to put 100% chip. You can leave, you can build in Taiwan, but you sell it back into the United States. We're going to put 100% or 200% tariff. We would have never lost a chip. We lost the chip industry. It's all coming back. And I do say this, Taiwan would be very smart to cool it a little bit. China would be very smart to cool it a little bit. They ought to both cool it.
On AI, was there any agreement about any kind of guardrails that China and the U.S. might agree to so that AI doesn't go crazy?
Well, we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it. Look, AI is mostly a great thing, mostly. And we're leading China. We talked about that. We're leading China by a lot. I gave the right for AI to build their own electric producing plants. That's a big deal. They can manufacture their own electricity now, which we could never have gotten from the grid. And now you have these very rich companies headed by lots of geniuses building electric plants. Because of that, we are leading China by a lot in the AI race. Now, it's mostly the two of us. Other nations are in it, but mostly. And whoever wins the AI race, and we're going to win it. I mean, if we're smart, we're going to win it. If we're not smart, we're not. But we're leading by a lot. We talked about that last night. President Xi was very surprised at how well we've done with AI, because they thought, you know, when it started, they took this gigantic lead. And we now we are substantially ahead of them in AI.
But do you think there'll be some buy-in, set up guardrails or something?
I think there could be. We talked about it. But, you know, at the same time, we're competing. So it's a little hard to say, oh, gee, we're competing with each other and we're going to put guardrails. It really doesn't work that way too much. But AI, if you look at medicine, some of the things they're coming up with medicine, some of the cures they're coming up with that people would have never gotten there, it's going to be mostly a good thing, but we want to have some guardrails.
You said that the President Xi said he would offer assistance on Iran. And specifically,
I also said we don't need assistance.
You didn't ask for it. You said he was offering it specifically to open the Strait of Hormuz. What do you think he will do?
I think he's been very nice about it. He gets 40% of his oil there. He didn't send anybody. He didn't send ships. He didn't send ships with big fat guns on them that we would have had to repel. We would have. The good thing is, I built, during my first 4 years, the most powerful military in the world. We have the most powerful military in the world. That was shown in Venezuela, which took 1 day. Actually took 48 hours. I mean, it took, let's see, about 48 minutes. I think it was 48 minutes and 13 seconds, and it was over. And it's a strong country with a strong military, but it went very quickly. And now, by the way, we have made a fortune with their oil. And so they've made more money in the last 8 months than they've made in the last 10 years. And we're really, participating in the profit.
Venezuela, but obviously Iran is...
No, it's a different kind of a thing. Yeah. But we're doing probably almost as well as, I don't know how you can do better. They have no navy.
Let's take a couple of seconds if you just got here to double tap that screen, guys. That's how you hit the like button. Hit the like button. It helps out the channel, man. Shut it live. Let your friends know we over here talking about what's going on with Trump, China, and Taiwan, guys.
They have no Air Force. It's all destroyed. Their Air Force is destroyed.
But yet they're talking a big game. They were at BRICS. Iran's foreign minister said the Strait is open to commercial shipping only if they cooperate with the Iranians.
They're not talking a big game. You know who's talking a big game? The fake news media. If you read the New York Times, you would think that we're losing militarily. Think of it. They have 159 ships. Every one is now on the bottom of the sea. Every one of them is gone. They had
Trump quick to call them fake news. We just reporting what we see, what y'all tell us, Trump. That's all. Tell us the real information then. He says fake news, man. You know, Trump called every station fake news.
Mine droppers. They call them mine droppers. Nice thing. Who has 22 mine droppers? The mine droppers are all gone. Now they have what they call fast boats. You know what they are? Runabouts, like you'd buy for your fantastic son if you wanted to buy him a nice boat, and they put a machine gun on it, okay? Most of them are knocked out. We knock them out just like we knock out the drug dealers.
You like to talk about cards. It seems like they're playing with a bad deck, to your point.
They have no deck.
But they're still playing.
No, the only thing they have going is a fake press. They know how well we're doing militarily. And then at the request of a very nice group of people from Pakistan who are very close to Iran, I didn't go that final. They said, could you stop? We're going to make a deal. And we really had the confines of a deal. No nuclear. They were going to give us the dust, nuclear dust, everything we wanted. And every time they make a deal, the next day it's like, we didn't have that conversation. And that's taken place about 5 times. There's something wrong with it.
They most definitely said, they came out on national TV and said, hey, man, we didn't have no negotiations with him. We would never have negotiations with him. Right after he had just told everybody that the talks went well. So, yeah, I hear Trump, man. Shout out to everybody in the building. Continue to get those likes up, guys.
Actually, they're crazy. And you know what? Because of that, they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Because
the president of China agrees with you on that. And
he agrees with me on that. He agrees with me that he wants to see it end. He'd like to see it end. He would like to help. If he wants help, that's great. But we don't need help. And you know the problem with help? When somebody helps you,
they say Trump is a liar.
On the other side. That's the way help works.
Hard to believe, but it was 1 year ago today in UAE, interviewed you, and I asked you about Iran. How do you get to a solution there?
Oh, we'll get 100%.
You think so?
Well, we're going to have a solution one way or the other. It's either going to be violent or not violent. And I far prefer nonviolent. Sure.
Obviously, you've explained.
Perfect answer.
You've explained why you did what you did, because of the nuclear threat for Iran. Yeah. But it's obviously not Venezuela. It's different.
Well, it's different, but
you did say it was going to be fairly quick, and you said it numerous times.
Venezuela was sending drugs in at a level that was terrible, and they did something that was a terrible, mortal sin. They emptied their prisons into our country. Okay, that was terrible, and that was different. This one is, I guess you could say, worse. That was pretty bad. You don't get much worse. Emptying your prisons, drug dealers, murderers into our country, that's pretty bad. But you could say this is worse. In this one, they are trying to make a nuclear weapon. I've stopped it twice. They would have had it 2 years ago. They would have used it.
Do we have any proof that they were trying to make a nuclear weapon, guys? Anybody in the chat, let me know where I can find that they had proof it. I thought Trump was moving off a hunch, or it's a possibility because they had the materials to make it, that they could make it, but not that they actually had one or was even trying to.
Already on Israel and the rest of the Middle East. Look at all the missiles shot at people that didn't think they were even involved. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, look at all. I mean, Bahrain, Kuwait, they got all shot at. Nobody thought they were even involved in this thing. They would have used a nuclear weapon on the Middle East. One thing I'll make clear right now, they said very specifically, because I deal with them, I said, we're taking the nuclear dust. They said, you can have it. I said, we're going to go get it. We're not going to let you take it. They said, we can't take it. We don't have the capability of taking it. I said, why? I said, because it was hit so hard. I mean, the mountain literally collapsed on it, a granite mountain.
So why isn't that good
Just
enough?
so you know. Well.
And now he's talking about Iran and their facilities. Remember, he said he completely obliterated them. And then Iran came back and said, man, we ain't lost nothing. So it's hard to decipher who lying and who telling the truth these days, guys.
I mean, if your goal was to set back,
it is good enough, but you know what? It's not good enough public relations wise. It's important, it's important. It's probably good enough for a different reason, though. Space Force, which I created, has got cameras, 9 different cameras in space on that site. We know everybody that moves there. We can read the name of a person. We can need, if his name is Mohammed something, and most of them are Mohammed, you can guess about 50% right. We can read his name right on his tag from space. It's the most amazing thing. Anybody that goes near that space, we have it tagged. They haven't done anything there. And if they did, we would hit them very hard. So 2 days ago, in speaking to the Iranians, they told me it was hit so hard. They actually said, I must say, that there's only 2 countries that could get it, us and China.
Right.
They said us and China, that they don't have the capability of getting it because it was so obliterated. The term I used was obliterated. The fake news said, oh, maybe somebody can get it. They actually said if they wanted to get it, they couldn't. So that's not good enough for me. I want to get it.
So why are we where we are? Did you underestimate the pain tolerance that Iran has?
I didn't
for this?
underestimate anything. We hit them unbelievably hard. Look, we left their bridges. We left their electricity capacity. We can knock that all out in 2 days. 2 days, everything. We left Cargill, and other than, I said, hit it except for the valves where the oil comes out. Because when you hit that, that means you're going to lose a little oil. But one thing is happening, amazingly. Ships are floating up to Texas and Louisiana, and they're going to Alaska, and they're loading up with oil like we've never seen before.
Americans want to know when it's over, though, right?
Yeah, look, Vietnam lasted 19 years. Iraq was like 10 years. Korea was 7 years.
Yeah, but they feeling like we shouldn't be there. Why start another one that could last 100 years? You just not getting started. That's why we don't know how long yours is going to be, Trump.
Another one was 14 years. Another one was 12 years. Another one was 9 years.
And yours could take just as long.
We're in there for 2.5 months. The other thing they talk about, so we lost tens of thousands of soldiers in Vietnam. We lost tens of thousands of soldiers in practically every war. I've lost, and I wish we'd lost none because I know those parents. I spoke to them. We lost 13 soldiers in 2 wars.
China got 3 tankers out this week filled with Iranian oil.
Because we allowed that to happen.
You did.
We allowed that to happen.
Before this trip. Gas prices in America are still high.
Through the roof.
They're going to drop like a rock as soon as it's over. Yeah. They'll
Painfully high, though, now.
Now, he said it again. It's going to drop like a rock once it's over. So he's saying that these gas prices that are sky high right now are going to go down whenever he leaves Iran.
And could be
lower than Biden. Excuse me. Lower than Biden. And much lower than people thought they'd be.
This inflation number is going up. You're right. It's much lower than President Biden's was, but it's going up under you. The numbers are. You can imagine Democrats and political pundits jumped all over this statement that you made the other day. You were asked when you were leaving.
What extent are American financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about American financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
That's right. That's a perfect segment. I'd make it again.
You can imagine how many people stop the soundbite I don't think about America's financial situation. So what's your response to that framework?
It's very simple. When people hear me say it, everybody agrees. Short-term pain. It's going to be short-term pain. But the pain is much less than people thought. Because people thought that the oil would go up to $250. You know, it was $99 yesterday, $99 a barrel. I thought it might go up to $200. I was okay with that. Not that I wanted it, but you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. They will use it on us. They'll start off with Israel, wipe it out.
Trump doubles down. He keeps saying it. His whole thing is they cannot have a nuclear weapon. But we're not sure if they even have a nuke, Trump.
Middle East, wipe it out. It'll go to Europe. You know, they have a missile that goes to Europe. You saw that, okay? They have a missile goes to Europe. I have done Europe a very big favor. When you tell somebody you're going to have to pay a little more, not that much more, a little more for gasoline for a very short period of time, because we want to stop the threat of being blown to pieces by a lunatic, by a crazy person, and they are crazy, using nuclear weapons, everybody says that's fine. And that question was a fake question, and they didn't put my full answer. I totally care. Look, I inherited high prices, and they came in with the word affordability. My first press conference, 2 days in, and Biden didn't do press conferences. He'd go for years without doing, because he was incapable of doing it. He was an incompetent person. But my first question was about eggs. Eggs have quadrupled. What are you going to do? I said, eggs, tell me about eggs. Tell me about the problem. Eggs have gone up 4 times. They said, I'll take care of it. By the way, I did take care of it. But
hey, Lady Sway,
because they are good. They're rotten with policy. They're horrible politicians. In many cases, we have a new name. They're Democrats. I call them Democrats. Not Democrats, they're Democrats. A lot of low IQ people. You have Ilhan Omar saying World War XI. She said she was referring to World War II. She said World War XI. These people are destroying our country, and we have to stop it. You know, President Xi said something yesterday. He talked about, and he wasn't referring to the last 15 months, he talked about America's a nation in decline. And I said, you're right. But he wasn't talking about, because he said, what you've done in 14, 15 months is a miracle.
When you hear Trump voters,
Trump say a miracle. They told him he did a miracle.
He can't handle the costs, and he's not for this foreign conflict.
I hate it, bro.
He's not for the foreign conflict, but Roy in Pennsylvania, he's a retired farmer. He can't handle the fuel going up, and he says he's
going to come down
disappointed.
very fast.
And
Well,
so,
look, I'm disappointed.
I'm just telling you
when
what they
you say
said.
to him, Roy, Alex, we got a problem. We just hit the highest stock market price ever. By the way, then when I went in. Now, again,
it's higher.
With the war, it's higher than it was when I went in. Think of that.
I agree.
The 401ks at their all-time high. There are more people working right now in the United States of America than at any point ever in the history of our country.
Detroit Free Press, a state that you won. While champagne flowed on the trading floor and President Donald Trump celebrated record highs, pessimism spread like wildfire outside Wall Street's doors, straight into the kitchens of
Trump just can't catch a break, man.
American families. There is this sense that, you know, something is changing. Whether they can hold on and believe that you're going to get them to,
Brett, I have to do what's right. I said to my people, we just hit 50,000 on the Dow. That wasn't supposed to happen for 5 or 6 years. I did it in my first year. We just hit 7,000 on the S&P. That wasn't supposed. That was even less of a chance than the Dow. We it was just announced 401ks are at their all-time highest that they've ever been. All these things happened, and I said, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we have to stop this group of very crazy people. Now, those people are gone. They've been eliminated. The second group has been eliminated, and some of the third group. In a way, we've eliminated so many leaders that it's almost, I'm trying to figure out who the hell are we dealing with, all right?
Who are you dealing with?
But, well, we're dealing with people that I think are right, but they're afraid to make a deal. They don't know how to make a deal. They've never been put in this position before.
So you're going to hold out
But-
until they do.
Well, I'm going to do what's right. I have to do what's right.
But the strait should be open, right?
It should be open. Look, see,
It
to
should
stop
be
the
open,
strait
and
is
we
very
should
easy.
be
All we
over
have to
there.
do is say, we dropped a mine in the strait someplace. You know, see, we're at a little disadvantage, but that's okay. The strait will be open. They will not have a nuclear weapon, and the world will go on, and you will see gasoline prices drop, energy prices generally drop like no. Don't forget, they have a lot of boats that are loaded up with oil that are going to bring the oil out as soon as this is over, and I think it's going to end fast. They've been holding up the world for many, many years with the strait. You know, they've used this many, many times. They said, we'll close the strait. They've closed it in the past. They use it as a weapon. They're not using it as a weapon with me. and what they did. And actually what President Xi said last night, sort of smiling about it, he said, well, they close the strait and then you close them.
But you think they're going to capitulate sometime soon?
Yeah, oh, sure.
Okay.
I have no doubt.
Mr. President, stand by if you would. Special report from Beijing with the President of the United States continues after this.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
All right. So that was basically Trump in his own words speaking on the situation in Thailand as well as the situation going on with Iran, guys. All right. So a lot of people felt like, okay, Trump went over there, but what did he really accomplish, guys? You know what I'm saying? What did he really accomplish? And then you heard him say something about the whole conflict comes from selling weapons to Taiwan. Well, there's people, you know, within the United States that feel like President Trump should basically give them arms, guys. How y'all feel about that? Check this out.
President Trump saying that he made no commitments about Taiwan at his summit with President Xi Jinping in Beijing after China warned of possible clashes over the subject of the island. Taiwan says that it will deepen ties with the United States post-summit as President Trump weighs a tricky decision on weapons sales to the self-ruled island.
What did President Xi say to you about Taiwan?
So do y'all feel like we should be selling Taiwan weapons, guys? It's like they want Trump to call Xi's bluff if he's bluffing.
And are you still going to approve the arms sale?
On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation. And I heard him out. Are you going to see two words? No, I didn't make a comment on it.
President Xi said there was a risk of conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be fine.
What about the arms sales to Taiwan?
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
With that, we bring in Gordon Chang, Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow and author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. He lived and worked in China and Hong Kong for almost 20 years. He's also featured in The Enemy's Arsenal, hosted by Maria Bartiromo, streaming now on Fox Nation. Gordon, always good to have you with us. Thank you for joining
So
us
more
today.
on this entire
What's your
situation,
reaction
guys.
to, and how do you read President Trump's comments with regard to Taiwan there and also to the arms shipment?
Yeah, this is standard U.S. policy that the United States doesn't say what it's going to do with regard to an invasion of Taiwan. I do think the arms sales would be good right now because Xi Jinping has been bluffing, and now's the time.
He said the arms sales would be good right now. What in the entire world, guys? He wants us to basically, he wants the U.S. basically to do business with Taiwan when it comes to the ammo, guys. That's crazy.
Sales would be good right now because Xi Jinping has been bluffing, and now's the time where
He wants Trump to call his bluff.
That enhances deterrence, and it also helps our friends around the region have confidence in us. You know, Xi Jinping has decimated the Chinese military, so he can say whatever he wants about invading Taiwan or about conflicts, but he's in no position to do that.
So, you know, as I was saying earlier with the ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, it used to be that Taiwan was, sort of emotionally, historically tied to China in China's perspective, that they wanted it to be part of China once again. Now it really has become a national security, a global national security island as the largest creator of chips for AI, which is a huge battle here. And Congress seems to be a little more clear on their stance on Taiwan. Here's Speaker Johnson.
We've always been concerned, and we've made America's interest very clear, our position on Taiwan. They need to stay independent and secure there, and we have an interest in that, as does everybody around the world, because of chip manufacturing and other reasons there. I'm sure they discussed that, but I don't know the details of it because I haven't talked to the president yet.
Your thoughts on that aspect of it, Gordon?
Well, there's certainly one Taiwan company, TSMC, makes 92% of the world's most sophisticated semiconductors. But it's far more important than that, Martha, because Taiwan is in the center of our Western defense perimeter, and Taiwan prevents the Chinese Navy and Air Force surging into the Pacific. We don't want to confront them at Hawaii or California, so Taiwan's critical for that. And also, after the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, Taiwan has become a key test of credibility of American resolve. So I think that it's important for us to defend Taiwan because of that. And by the way, Martha, no Chinese regime has ever held indisputable sovereignty to the island of Taiwan. So the history that we hear from the People's Republic, it's bad history.
Let me just play this reporter Emily Goodwin's soundbite, because obviously this is a full screen quote. Obviously, everyone thought a lot about their phone, their security when they were in communist China. And she said this: American staff took everything Chinese officials handed out: credentials, burner phones from White House staff, pins for delegation collected before we got on Air Force One, threw them in a bin at the bottom of the stairs. Nothing from China was allowed on the—
Make sure you guys are double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button. Let's get the likes up, guys. If you just got here, double tap that screen on your mobile device. That's how you hit the like. Or you can click the 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, guys. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're subscribing if you're new. We most definitely getting all the details when it comes to China and Taiwan in the United States, guys. Shout out to everybody in the building.
a plane, she says. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, certainly, because we know what China has done in the past with regard to electronics. They put bugging devices everywhere. So this is just a necessary precaution. It's unfortunate that this had to occur, but the Chinese have weaponized everything at their disposal.
So we look forward in September to the visit from President Xi. Obviously, this is an extremely important relationship and has adversarial and cooperative complexities to it across the board. Gordon, always good to have you with us. Thank you very much.
All right, so that was a little bit more on that situation. That man right there basically feels like we should do business with Thailand, and basically see what the Chinese are gonna do if we were to do business. Basically call their bluff. I don't think you want to be messing around with China, man. I don't think you want to be messing around with China.
For president, you may remember this. He had a question he loved to ask, a particular thought experiment about a tete-a-tete between Vice President Harris and President Xi. And it went like this.
Kamala Harris is so incompetent. Can you imagine her dealing with President Xi of China?
Can you imagine her dealing with President Xi? Can you imagine with President Xi?
Can you imagine her negotiating?
Not Trump talking trash about Xi and then saying they good friends, though.
With President Xi of China. Can you imagine her standing with President Xi of China? I don't think so.
Can you imagine? He said that so many times. I mean, Trump spent that campaign railing about China's influence in the world, and he repeatedly insisted that he alone was the only candidate tough enough to go toe-to-toe with President Xi of China. He was the only person who could show Xi who's boss.
And guess what? He just basically said that again when he said, I don't think they'll attack while I'm in office, but if I leave, they might try to do something. Like he said they was friends, but at first he was saying he intimidated China. Which one is it? I'm just saying.
Well, Donald Trump just finished his first state visit to China in his second term. And how did it go? Did big bad Donald Trump stand up to the Chinese leader?
We have a friendship, really. He's a tremendous leader. He's been here a long time. Very powerful,
yes, he calling it out.
Very strong. There's no doubt about it. I say about him.
Now y'all friends.
If you went to Hollywood and you looked for a leader of China to play a role in a movie,
central casting.
He's central casting. You couldn't find a guy like him. Even his physical features. He's tall, very tall. I'll get criticized. They always criticize me when I say good things about certain leaders, and this one. But he's a leader for China. He's led almost 1.5 billion people for a long time, and he's respected.
Can you imagine if Kamala Harris was president? Could she lavish the leader of the Chinese Communist Party with praise like that? Would she be able to capture what a tall, beautiful autocrat with movie star looks she is with the same gushing prose? I don't think so.
She basically said Trump back down.
Okay, so Donald Trump didn't exactly put on his tough guy American first routine for President Xi as he claimed he would do throughout the campaign, but maybe that's okay. After all, Trump has just plunged our country into a disastrous and protracted war with Iran. The Strait of Hormuz has been closed for 77 days now, driving up global oil prices and forcing Americans to pay a whole lot more when they fill up their gas tanks. Maybe Trump is focused on getting President Xi's help to reopen the strait and fix Trump's big mess. Doesn't make a ton of sense, but maybe that's where his focus is. Any progress on that front?
President Xi.
Is she making any sense to y'all, or any of y'all in agreement with anything she's saying? Let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know.
He would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer. He said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help. Because,
he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him.
No, I don't call it misinformation, ma'am. I call it, a difference of opinion. And the difference of opinion is not misinformation. It's just somebody else having a different form of information than the information that you want to hear.
He said, I would love to be of help. If I could be of any help whatsoever, he'd like to see the Hormuz Strait open. He said, if I could be of any help whatsoever, I would like to help.
Well, hey, even Sean Hannity sounded a little surprised there. Did you catch that? As you should be, because China has no real incentive to help end this war. But Trump says President Xi agreed to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe something, miraculously will come out of this after all.
But we have to have receipts when Trump started telling you people say something, because we gotta hear him say it, because he might not have said that.
Now, all Trump has to do is seal the deal with those trademark negotiating skills he's always bragging about. Any luck with that one?
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return. We don't need favors. I didn't ask him to put pressure because I don't need favors.
Trump say he don't need no favors.
Home from China, where he did the interview with Sean Hannity. So no help with the Strait of Hormuz then. Cool. I guess Trump's biggest international blunder will continue to just blunder along for now. But then again, this trip was about more than just fixing Trump's latest scripts. It was about reaffirming the U.S.'s position on big decades-long issues like China's claim over the country of Taiwan. For years now, people have been worried that China may try to invade Taiwan,
guys, that's why you keep hearing it, along with his weapons deal.
Predecessor, the man Trump loves to criticize as weak, took a harder line than U.S. presidents had in some time.
Would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
To be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
So what did tough on China Donald Trump have to say about the issue of Taiwan on this trip?
I think the last thing we need right now is a war that's 9,500 miles away. I think that's the last thing we need. We're doing very well.
Would the U.S. defend Taiwan if it came to it?
I don't want to say. I'm not going to say that. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is? Me. I'm the only person. That question was asked to me today by President Xi. I said, I don't talk about those things.
Trump says he's not going to talk about his position on Taiwan, although I kind of feel like he sort of did tell us his position in the first part of that clip. Let's just play that part again.
I think the last thing we need right now is a war that's 9,500 miles away. I think that's the last thing we need.
I think the last thing we need right now is a war that's 9,500 miles away. It sounds kind of like Trump is saying he's not interested in defending Taiwan if they're invaded by China, which was the position of most presidents in recent memory. And for the record, Taiwan isn't 9,500 miles away from the U.S. It's 6,500 miles away, or about the same distance as Iran. The place where Donald Trump decided we did need a war for reasons he has never effectively explained. So I guess Trump wasn't interested in standing up for Taiwan on this trip, but maybe he was just saving all his leverage for the stuff that really matters to the folks he likes to call his people. After all, Trump has spent years making big promises to parts of his base about how he would specifically stand up for them against China. Promises like this one, which Trump made on the campaign trail just a few years ago.
Yeah, I will ban communist China from buying up American farmland and other critical infrastructure in the United States. Have to do it. You have to do it.
So Trump promised he would ban China from buying up U.S. farmland. He said you have to do it. So did he do it? Did he keep that promise?
Chinese nationals have been buying up thousands and thousands of acres of farmland, ranch land, and land near military installations.
Look, it's not that I love it.
Thank you for the heart.
You want to see farm prices drop? You want to see farmers lose a lot of money? Just take that out of the market. But they've had a lot of land for a long time.
There you go. Looks like Trump's not exactly keeping that promise he made on the campaign trail either. Look, Donald Trump talked a lot of big talk about how he would be tough on China as president. But at the end of this trip, it seems like he's done really nothing for his voters, nothing for Taiwan, nothing to end his war in Iran. The only things he seems to have done was compliment the leader of the Chinese Communist Party for his good looks and his height, I guess. After all of that, what does Donald Trump want us to believe he got out of this trip? What was our big success?
Yeah, what did we get
What's the
from
most significant, specific thing you walk away from?
Thank you, Lady
for
Swag.
the U.S.
I think the most important thing is relationship. It's all about relationship. I have a very good relationship with President Xi and with China. And it sounds like something that doesn't mean anything, but it's everything.
Can you imagine that guy sitting across from Xi Jinping? Unfortunately, we don't have to. I could not think of two better people to break down all of this madness with me and everything that just happened on that trip. Michael McFaul is the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. Barbara Starr is the legendary former Pentagon correspondent for CNN. Both of them have been on many trips, international trips with many leaders in the past. And I'm so grateful they're joining me now. Ambassador McFaul, let me start with you. I just outlined some of the biggest issues that were at stake during this visit. We talked about this late last night when the trip was still a bit ongoing. But as you looked, it's now over. What did Trump and really the United States get out of this trip?
Jen, you just summarized it brilliantly. That was a fantastic laydown. And I'm so glad you reminded everybody about what he said he was going to do with China. Remember, when he first ran for president, it was all about China. China's eating our lunch. China's taking our jobs. They're doing all these horrible things to us.
Absolutely.
And he used that phrase, that clip you
That's what we
said
were
to
just
show
saying.
Communist China, right?
They're exposing how Trump talks so tough about how he would stand up to China compared to what he did when he went there. You know, so most definitely remember what he said. Thank you for that star, Flip Mode.
You never heard him use the word communist once on this trip. And I just think this flip is remarkable. And I hope his voters noticed it. I hope Republicans noticed it, because for decades, the Republican Party was always saying, Democrats are weak on China, we're going to be tough. And now he is completely flipped. You could not do a bigger flip than what he said he was going to do from his first term. And you could say, well, okay, Mike, settle down. We got really important things we got to do. Therefore, he has to say nice things about the chairman of the Communist Party of China. He has to praise him as the great leader. We don't do that for our allies. We only do it for Putin and Xi Jinping. But he has to do it, Mike, because we have to get some concrete things done for the American people. But as you just showed, there's not a single concrete deliverable that makes the American people better off, more secure as a result of this trip. And that's, I think, makes it very bankrupt, because everything was so sycophantic about what a great leader he was. You would hope you could translate that into something tangible. And I haven't seen it yet. Now, maybe there's something behind closed doors we'll learn about later, but I haven't seen it so far.
No, I haven't either. And usually you would see it, because usually all of the work is done on the lead up to the trip, and then the presidents announce things because all the work was done by cabinet members and others.
Wow, guys. Yeah, so that was Trump with the situation, basically speaking on the situation and hearing others' opinion about what's going on with China in Taiwan, guys. If Trump will make that weapon deal or not, it's still up in the air, guys, and we have to keep an eye on it, and see what it is exactly that he does when it comes to that situation. All right, so we got none other up next, J.D. Vance, guys. J.D. Vance basically came out and said, gave a speech speaking about, basically, hold on, let me change this. Cracking down on fraud, guys. Yeah. J.D. Vance say they cracking down on fraud, guys. Hold on, let me fix this. Hold up. All right, let's get into J.D. Vance and what he had to say that he was doing to basically crack down on fraud, guys. Your Vice President, J.D. Vance. Let's go.
Okay, so word to the wise, never come to a crowd of Maine and ask them where to buy lobster rolls, because I've gotten 14 answers in the past 15 seconds, but it sounds like we got plenty of options, and I'm proud to be here in Maine and proud to be in a state with hardworking people, hardworking fishermen, hardworking shipbuilders, and the people who make the United States run. God bless you, Maine. I'm proud to be here. Now, I want to give a great shout out to our acting labor secretary, Keith, who's done an amazing job helping us fight fraud, but also protect American working people. One of the things the Trump administration, the president, has ordered us to do from day one is we are trying to create good American jobs for the American people. Who is sick of leadership that ships our jobs overseas? Aren't we proud to have a president who protects your jobs and keeps them right here in America?
We need 40 more likes, guys, to have 200 on that like button. Can we get 40 more likes? Double tap that screen. I know it's about 40 people in the building, at least, that haven't hit that like button. Double tap the screen of your mobile device or click those three dots and hit that thumbs up, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is J.D. Vance, basically giving a speech in I forget where they said he was at. He's giving a speech basically talking about cracking down on fraud, guys. He's in Maine. Let's go.
But here's the thing, my friends, because you all work hard, because you all pay your taxes, because you do things the right way, it is time to have leadership in Washington that treats you the right way and protects those hard-earned tax dollars. When the president of the United States said, JD, we've got a fraud problem and I want you to tackle it, I was so proud and so happy to be able to do it, because I realized that fraud isn't just about saving money. It's not just about protecting taxpayers, it's about protecting you. The money you send to the government and the services that you rely on. So for once, for the first time in a very long time, you've got an administration in Washington, D.C. that is fighting for you, fighting to protect your tax dollars, and fighting to put the fraudsters in prison, which is where they belong. And we're going to talk about that because everybody asks me, the president asked me, I hear from people all the time who say, is going after fraud hard? And I say,
is J.D. Vance as bad as Trump to y'all? Let me know. How y'all feeling about J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance. Could he be the next president of the United States? Let me know. He is a part of Trump cabinet. He is the vice president. It most definitely could happen.
Say, unfortunately, no, because there is a lot of fraud in the federal government. It's like fishing in a barrel. There is always something. Every week, I get a report from these guys, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it's unbelievable how much you have been fleeced by your own government over the past 15, 20, 30 years. Nobody was looking at this. Nobody was asking difficult questions like, for example, are dead people getting food stamps? Okay, call me old-fashioned, but I don't think that dead people eat, so certainly they don't need food stamps. Unfortunately, They vote for Democrats. They don't vote for us, my friends. But why is it that we have people who are driving Lamborghinis? And that is true. People driving Lamborghinis who are getting low-income assistance that's supposed to go for housing and food for our people. Why is it that we have people in hospice claiming hospice benefits, but who have no terminal illnesses? And by the way, here's the crazy thing. It's very often, it's not a person who's even using their own identity. They're claiming that somebody else, they're stealing somebody else's identity, claiming hospice services, and then when that hardworking American goes to apply for some other benefit, they get tagged by the bank as being a fraudster, even though it wasn't them. It was somebody who's stolen their identity. Who here knows somebody who's had their identity stolen? Isn't that a shame? At least half of the hands shot up, and the reason why we've allowed identity theft to fester in this country is because the government wasn't going after fraud. And ladies and gentlemen, that changed the moment Donald J. Trump became the president of the United States.
So Vance say they going after fraud, guys. I see some of y'all down there calling him a fraud. I'm just saying.
Now, I want to talk about all that, but I want to give a few notes of shout out here because we have a lot of great local officials and a lot of great future officials that are here today. And first, we have your great former Governor Paul LePage. Paul wish that she would not be a good fit for the people of Maine. So let's give a shout out to Susan Collins, who's doing a great job. Fighting up, who go to work, who do what they're supposed to do and don't want their money stolen by people who are doing the opposite of what they're supposed to do. You were the first victim of fraud. But you know what else I've realized is that you're not the only victim of fraud. Because when people steal your money and it doesn't go to where it's supposed to go, there are a lot of people who are out there who are suffering in the process. And I'm talking about physicians who are denied their Medicaid reimbursements because a fraudster stole their identity and charged for services that weren't actually being provided. I'm talking about the good doctors who do what they're supposed to and don't like it when corrupt healthcare providers go and claim services that aren't even necessary. So then the victim is the doctor that gets stolen from, it's the taxpayer that gets stolen from, but it's also the innocent patient who should be able to know that when their doctor prescribes something, it's meant for them and it's good for them. I'm talking about the construction worker who can't buy a cell phone because when an illegal alien goes and steals their identity and applies for SNAP benefits, now all of a sudden they're tagged in the banking system, their credit score is ruined. Not because they did a single thing wrong, but because somebody stole their identity. Fraud is exactly what happens when you've got a government that is not fighting for the American people, but is fighting for fraudsters and illegal aliens, and it had to stop.
We need 30 more likes, guys. Double tap that screen if you have not. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen, guys. We now need 25 more likes to hit 200, guys. Help us hit the 200 mark by hitting that like button. You can either double tap your screen or click the three dots and hit that thumbs up.
And under the Trump administration, we are fighting it every single day. And again, it is every single day I learn of something new. I learn about people who say that they're claiming for hospice services, but in fact, they're not providing any services and they're making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in the process. Talk about something that we've seen in Minneapolis, but also in Maine. We have seen people go out there and say that they're providing services to autistic children, when in reality, they maybe don't have any children at all, or they certainly don't have autistic children. So they get paid millions and millions of your dollars to provide services that they're not actually providing. And oh, by the way, what happened to the autistic children and their families who actually need those services and need a competent government to ensure that they're doing the right thing? My friends, this has gone on for far too long. You have been fleeced by your own government for far too long, and we are stopping it every single day.
JD said they putting an end to that fraud.
Now, let me tell you about a guy, though, who did not.
I heard they already taking aim at people who got those PPP loans under false pretenses. Am I wrong? I most definitely think I seen something about that the other day where they were basically picking up people who got those fraudulent PPP loans.
Stand for fraud. He did not stand for fraud when he was in the state government, and he will not stand for fraud in the United States House of Representatives representing you. And that's Paul LePage. Now, I hate to say this because I love this state. The first time I ever visited Maine actually was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, it was exactly 4 years ago because I remember our daughter, who's now 4, was probably 3 or 4 months old at the time. And we came up here and we stayed for a week. It was one of the most amazing trips I've ever had in my life because this is a beautiful state, as you all know, with incredible people, with good food. This is America. Yeah. This is the very best of America right here in communities like this. Yeah. And so I have a special affection for this state, but I can't even compare to your great former governor. Because while I love this state as an outsider, he loves this state as somebody who has fought for it every single day. A guy who came to work every single day, protecting your tax dollars, protecting your essential services, protecting our local law enforcement, making sure, common sense, that the government actually works for the people who deserve and have the right to be in the United States to begin with. Makes sense, right? That's what it should be. But because I love this state, I can say I am heartbroken by what has happened to the fraud that's being perpetrated on the taxpayers of this state. Because outside of Minnesota and California, which are probably number 1 and number 2, if they're the gold medalist and the silver medalist, I heard somebody shout out New York. Maybe New York is the bronze medalist, but let me be honest, maybe Maine is the bronze medalist. Because if you look at the fraud that has happened in this state, if you look at the illegal immigrant communities who have taken benefits that ought by rights go to the people in this room, what you have in Maine is a festering problem where people have been taken advantage of and they've been stolen from, and your government hasn't done anything about it. You ask yourself, why did Maine go from a state that did not have a serious fraud problem to one where I can honestly say it's one of the worst states in the union? And I'll give you 2 answers and 2 politicians. Number 1 is Janet Mills, and number 2 is Joe Biden. And thankfully, one of them has already.
Now you acting like Trump. Got to say something about Biden every
exactly
time.
as it should be. Now here's what Paul LePage did, and I'm not just blowing smoke, my friends. He took concrete action to try to fight back against fraud. He doubled the number of fraud investigations when he was the governor of this state. That's an amazing thing. He required personal photos on EBT cards so that we could make sure the people getting those benefits are the ones who deserve those benefits. And he cracked down on the international fraud rings that were taking advantage of this great state. You have to ask yourself, why is it that you have a government that seems more focused on the illegal aliens growing weed illegally than it is on the taxpayers of this state?
Oh,
why
wow.
is it that you have a government that seems not to care about you, but sure as hell cares about Somali fraudsters who are making millions and millions of dollars off of your taxpayer money? And the answer is because you have a governor who hasn't fought for you. Let's send a governor who did fight for you to the U.S. Congress. Let's send Paul LePage to the U.S. House. Now here's another thing Paul said, and this is why I blame Joe Biden, because you cannot talk about the fraud problem in the United States of America without acknowledging that Joe Biden's administration let in tens of millions of illegal aliens all over the United States of America, including the state of Maine. And unfortunately, you still got way too many of them. It's one of the reasons why we've devoted ourselves over the past 18 months, and we're going to keep on fighting to get illegal aliens out of the United States of America. We got to fight for our own people. So here's the difference, though. The difference one administration, the difference one political leader makes is we are now trying so hard. And I know y'all don't like Janet Mills. I don't especially care for her either. But I would love to work with the governor of Maine to stop the fraud that's being perpetrated in this state. This should not be, think about this. This should not be a red state or a blue state issue. This isn't Republican or Democrat. This is common sense. This is protecting every single person in this room from being defrauded by their own government. But you know what she's done? She has prevented local police from working with us to get criminal illegal aliens out of this state. She has actually fought back against our efforts to identify fraud in the Medicaid and Medicare programs, which, by the way, not only does it steal from you, but it means that those programs are going to go bankrupt because all the money's going to the fraudsters. So let me ask you this simple question. Do you like having a government official who fights for illegal aliens over you? No! Do you like having a state governor who doesn't work with the federal government to fight against fraud? No! So let's kick Janet Mills to the curb. Yeah! And let's send Paul LePage to Washington to help us fight the fraudsters and protect all of you. This guy just said, send him to Gitmo.
Thank you to everybody that hit that like button. Thank you.
I kind of like sending the fraudsters to Gitmo. We got to get him out of this country, and we got to get him in prison. Here's the thing. Let me talk a little bit about just one person, because I think it highlights how bad the fraud problem has been in the state of Maine. We had an illegal immigrant in this community who said that she was providing services, interpretive services to other immigrants. Okay, so Medicaid reimburses people to provide interpretation services for people who don't speak English, which, by the way, people should be speaking English in the United States of America. I think that's common sense. But this woman, her name was Rakia Muhammad. And it turns out that Rakia Muhammad was not a particularly upstanding citizen, okay? So while she said that she was providing interpretation services, do you know what she was actually doing? Providing zero services and collecting the $15 million over a 5-year period that was going directly into her pocket. And that happened pretty much during the entirety of the Biden administration, and no one in the Biden administration thought to step in and stop this ridiculous fraud. Now, I have two questions when it comes to Rakia Muhammad stealing $15 million from every single person in this room. Question number one is, why was this person in the United States of America to begin with? Call me crazy, but I think that when we welcome new immigrants to the United States of America, they should be people who enrich our country and bring some good skills into our country, not a person who's going to steal $15 million from the people in this room. But second of all, why on earth are we allowing a person to steal $15 million from all of you without the state government lifting a finger to stop it? Why did it take Washington coming in from the outside to ensure that this person who is defrauding you is going to go to prison? And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what she's going to happen. Convicted guilty, and she's going to jail, which is where she belongs. Now, with all these things, though, there's a good news, bad news situation. So the good news is that she's going to prison and she's not going to be committing fraud. But the bad news is the same system that allowed these people to take advantage of the taxpayers of Maine, it has not been changed at all by the local government. I'm telling you, and I'll say this to the cameras, I'll say this to the governor and anybody else. If you want to partner in fighting fraud, you've got one. This does not need to be Republican versus Democrat. This needs to be fraudster against non-fraudster. This needs to be good government versus bad government. So I will extend the hand to anybody, whether they've got a D next to their name or an R next to their name. If you want to help the Trump administration fight fraud, you are going to find a willing partner. And by the way, as much as I'm a Republican, you all know this, I'm the Republican vice president of the United States. We have found some blue states that are willing to work with us. Unfortunately, Maine is not among them. So whenever you replace Janet Mills with somebody, I hope you replace her with somebody who's going to help us fight fraud, protect you, and protect the programs that the people of Maine rely on. And the bad news for Rakia Muhammad is that she's going to go to prison, hopefully for a very long time. Now, the good news for her, though, is I think she might have a future in Democratic Party politics in the state of Maine. Unfortunately, the Maine Democrats, elected Democrats, seem to really like fraudsters. They might just elect this woman the next governor or the next senator from Maine. Who knows? But not if you have anything to do with it. Am I right? Are we going to elect the
JD Vance cracks down on fraud, guys.
Are we going to elect a fraudster, a pro-fraud Democrat, to be the next senator from Maine? Absolutely not. We're going to send representatives, senators, and governors who fight for the people in this room. We're going to do it by rejecting fraudsters, sending them to prison where we can, and taking away the money in all cases. That's how we fight fraud successfully. And I want to just say one final thing about fraud, because I think it's such an important topic. You heard the great Secretary of Labor say this. What is so different about our approach in this administration is that we're not just sending money out the door and then trying to find the fraudsters afterwards. We're actually making the money conditional on state governments fighting fraud to begin with. Now, why does this matter? Because that's where you've got the most power, and that's where you've got the ability to stop it from going to fraudsters to begin with. So here's what we did yesterday. The Trump administration, we sent out 50 letters to every state Medicaid system all over the country. We basically said, very simply, that we're going to take away your money unless you get serious about fighting fraud. Common sense. And what that means is that we're going to be able to ensure that there are proper controls, that there are proper filters, that before somebody pays out benefits, that they ensure that your money is going to where it should go. And I got to say, as a person who has in the past benefited from some of these programs, this is a very personal issue to me. One of the things I love about our country, and I certainly think is true about the great state of Maine, is that we're generous people. We don't want American citizens to go hungry. We don't want low-income kids to not be able to afford a bite to eat. We want to make sure that if you're a poor child or a poor family, you get an opportunity to see a doctor, even if money is particularly tight. That's why these programs exist. They exist for American citizens to look after our fellow citizens. And I think that's a great and generous thing about the United States of America. Again, my family has benefited from some of those programs in the past. But you know what destroys those programs? And not just destroys those programs, but destroys the spirit of generosity that makes those programs possible. It's when local officials and state officials and federal officials, it's when they let the fraudsters take advantage of you instead of fighting for you. So when I say that I'm fighting against fraud, I'm not just fighting to save your money as much as that matters to me. I am fighting to preserve the sense that Americans look after Americans, but you know who we don't look after? We don't look after fraudsters, and we don't look after people who have no right to be in the United States of America to begin with. So let me close with this, and then I'll take a few questions from the reporters. What we've done here.
Wow, huh? JD Vance talking about cracking down, guys, on fraud.
Here in the last 18 months, I'm incredibly proud of. We have managed to take the fight to the fraudsters. We've managed to save hundreds of billions of dollars of your tax dollars, and God willing, we're to save hundreds of billions of more in the next 2.5 years. But we cannot do it without you. And one of the coolest things about this effort, maybe my single favorite thing about this anti-fraud effort, is that many of the big leads that we've had have come from citizens and journalists, have come from people like Nick Shirley. It was a 22-year-old kid. A 22-year-old kid who had the audacity to go to the people who were receiving your tax dollars and ask questions. Something, frankly, it would have been great if the national media showed a little bit more interest in. But I just want to say to all of you, for caring about this issue, for being engaged in this issue, for sending tips into our fraud task force. Thank you. Because a big part of Americans looking after our fellow Americans is to ensure that nobody is defrauding the greatest country in the world. And you have been our best advocates in fighting back against fraud. Thank you all. Thank you all for having me. All right. So we will take a few questions from the local press. The lights are so bright, it is unfortunate. I can't see you, so you just have to kind of raise your hand and shout out your question. But I will say that I want one of these great local journalists who've been focused on this fraud issue. Let's start with you, sir. Go ahead. We like this guy.
And they want to know that these fraudsters are going to be held accountable. But I tell everybody that it comes
I'll repeat it for you.
You today coming validates the fraud. But it's up to the rest of us to make sure it gets fixed. What is your advice to the people of Maine and how they hold their elected leaders accountable?
So the question for those of you who couldn't hear is, we all know there's a fraud problem in Maine. We all know we want to fix the fraud problem in Maine. What advice do I have? What are the concrete steps that we can take to actually ensure that the fraud stops? Let me give you a few answers. And one, I got to be honest, it's on me, and it's on the Federal Department of Justice. It's on the leadership of the United States government. Is when we find somebody like Ms. Muhammad who's committing fraud against the American people, we've got to show up and arrest her and try to send her to prison. It's very simple. There's got to be accountability. Because here, one of the things I learned, and I was shocked by this, is that when we have what is defined as low-level fraud, let's say a person defrauds all of you for $1 million. Too many of our Department of Justice leaders under the Biden administration, they said that was too low level to actually go after. So, I mean, how many of you would like the federal government to hand you $1 million? Yeah. Well, there were fraudsters out there who were getting $1 million of your money, and the government wasn't even paying attention to it. One of the best things that you can do when you go and arrest somebody and throw them in prison when they break the law is, yes, it's justice for that one person, but it also sends a message to all the other fraudsters that we're not going to tolerate this crap anymore. So we have got to get serious, and sir, we
so
have.
Van says it's time to make an example out of the fraudster, guy. He says it's time to make an example out of
the most actionable thing that you can do, because you're not going to get help from the governor right now. We all know that. She hasn't taken fraud very seriously. It's funny. She came to Washington last year and did some breakfast with the President of the United States. And when she showed up, what did she talk about? Did she talk about, you know, the issues that matter to workers? Was she talking about jobs and investments in the state of Maine? No, she showed up to advocate for the right of men to play in women's sports. That's what she cared about when she got in front of the President of the United States. Again, I think all of us believe it's crazy that men would want to play in women's sports. I think that's common sense. But here's what I understand even less than that. Even if you think that men should play in women's sports, how is that the issue you care most about as the governor of the state of Maine? It's crazy. It's crazy. So what you all can do is keep your eyes open. Okay, I don't have any faith in your local government right now, or I should say your state government, that they're going to fix this problem. But so much, again, of the best stuff that we've gotten on the anti-fraud task force has been from local officials and local citizen journalists. And when I say a citizen journalist, I don't mean a person who went to journalism school. I mean a person with a cell phone who's willing to ask questions of their local leadership and of everybody else in their community. Like, here's the thing. When we really got wind of what was going on in Minneapolis, it was because somebody showed up at the Quality Leering Center. We've got a guy over there. Did you get a good education at the Quality Leering Center, sir? That's not, he said he's a graduate with honors of the Quality Leering Center. I congratulate you, but I don't think it's that hard, if we're being honest with you. But he's the proudest graduate. Look, here's the thing. If you have a daycare center that's receiving millions of dollars of federal tax dollars, and it says it can't even spell the word learning right, maybe you send a message to your local representative, you send a message to Paula Page, or you reach out to us on the Fraud Task Force, the website's right there, and actually make it possible for us to go and investigate this stuff. So keep your eyes and your ears to the ground. There is unfortunately fraud all around us. If we're going to get at this problem, we're going to need citizens to take it seriously. I know you are. Let's just keep at it. Thank you. We'll take a few questions from back in
JD Vance on fraud, guys.
Go ahead, guys.
This is Rich McHugh from News Nation. So we've been
a microphone for them. It's because it's hard for me to hear all the way back there. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you, ma'am. I just got invited to go cross-country skiing and snowshoeing by this lovely young lady here. And I got to tell you, ma'am, I appreciate that. I love this state. And we will make sure we get the brochure. But here's the thing about cross-country skiing is it's a lot of work. When I'm doing leisure activity, I like to be a little bit lazier than that. I kind of like a nice hill where you just glide down. Cross-country is a lot of work.
So, Vice President Vance, Rich McHugh from News Nation. We have been reporting here in Maine since last year on fraud. We've been reporting in Minnesota on fraud. We're seeing prosecutions happen in Minnesota and in California. But some of the things that we're hearing from people and whistleblowers is you have to go to the org structure, the leadership, and that's not happening. How will this administration go after not just the people who are perpetrating it, but the people who are enabling it and overseeing it in the first place?
It's a good question. So, one of the reasons why I raised this question of certain amounts of fraud being so low level that people weren't even looking at it is it's impossible to get to the high level fraudsters unless you're sometimes willing to look at the low level fraudsters too. I mean, how many of us have watched a good mob movie? And how do those prosecutions always start? You never start with the boss. You start with the low-level guys who then give you some sense of the criminal enterprise, and then you can go after the high-level fraud and the high-level crime. The fact that we were turning a blind eye to fraud under $1 million meant that we weren't even looking at the people who were sitting on top of some of these fraud rings. And we do see already signs in Minnesota, for example, of some very sophisticated stuff. I mean, sometimes I see these fraud rings and I think to myself, sir, if you just started like a real business, you might actually be a halfway productive citizen, but instead you put those talents into fraud. And so we're going to put all our talents to throw you in prison if that's how you're going to approach that. And that's the most important thing is you've got to be willing to go everywhere and look at all fraud, or you're never going to be able to look at the high level guys. Because very often what will happen is you've got 10 people who are skimming $1 million off the top. And then they kick up a few $100,000 to somebody above them. And then it turns out that when you look at the whole network, you've got a lot of people who are making millions and millions and millions of dollars for every low-level guy that's making $500,000 or something like that. So our approach has been to go everywhere, to look at everything, and that's how we're going to get the fraudsters. And trust me, we are going to get them. We already have gotten a lot of them, and we're going to keep our pedal to the gas for the next 2.5 years. Next question.
Brittany McHatton from WABI in Bangor, wondering what the Mills administration and the state government could do today to begin working with you on this issue.
Yeah, so I'll give you two the question was, what could the local administration, the state administration do to help work with us on this issue? I'll give you two very concrete examples. So first of all, one of the biggest problems that we have in Medicaid fraud is, again, because these programs are state administered, the states have to actually empower their anti-fraud people to look into what's going on. So we have what's called every 50 state, or all 50 states should have what's called an MFCU, a Medicare Fraud Control Unit. And we need the local governor to just empower that Medicare Fraud Control Unit to look at the fraud, to prosecute it. And then, of course, they can ask the federal government if they reach a case that's so big they need a little help. We would be happy to help them. We just need the local governor to work with us a little bit better. Exactly. And unfortunately, I just don't get the sense, having talked to her, my people have talked to her, I don't get the sense that the state governor here is particularly interested in working on this problem. But I'll give you another example. So we know one of the biggest drivers of fraudulent federal benefits is SNAP. It's the food stamps program, okay? So again, this is a program which actually has even less federal oversight, as shocking as that is, even less federal oversight than the state Medicaid program. So here's how food stamps works. every month or every couple of weeks, the state of Maine, the state of California, all 50 states, I'm not joking about this, will submit a bill to the federal government and say, this is how much we spend on food stamps.
Fraud, guys.
There's no verification of a single person. There's no confirmation that, let's say a person was on food stamps and passed away, that person has stopped receiving benefits. There's no confirmation that you don't have illegal aliens receiving food stamp benefits. So I always laugh a little bit when I hear people like Gavin Newsom or Janet Mills say, we don't let illegal aliens access the food stamp program. And I say, how do you know? And so the number one thing that I would like them to do is to help us set up the systems to where if you're getting food stamps, we confirm that number one, you're eligible, you actually need the program. Number two, you're not an illegal alien. And number three, you're still alive. It is not a high barrier to demand that Janet Mills confirms that the people who are receiving food stamps are actually breathing. I'm a pretty conservative guy, but I think that's a pretty low bar
that sounds pretty
for Janet
good.
Mills to clear. We would love to work with her on that. We encourage her to do so.
ABC 7 and Fox 22 News here in Bangor. In your remarks, as you mentioned, the administration has warned that states could lose federal funding if they don't aggressively prosecute Medicaid fraud. If funding is cut, how will the federal government ensure that low-income Mainers, particularly those in rural areas, are still receiving necessary medical care?
Well, let me say two things. First of all, there is no administration in American history that has done more to make secure and safe and dependable the rural healthcare system than the Trump administration. In the Working Families Tax Cuts bill, now, you all think of that primarily as a tax piece of legislation because it was, but you know that there were tens of billions of dollars put into a rural healthcare stabilization funds so that all the rural hospitals and clinics that were closing under the Biden administration, so that we could make sure those clinics are able to stay open for the people in Maine who need them. That was a very, very important part of the legislation.
They say Trump and Vance lie about everything.
The second thing I'd say is whether it's Medicaid or any other program, we don't want the people, and we're setting this up so that the people who need these programs and are eligible for them, they're not going to suffer the consequences. We want the fraudsters and we want the bureaucrats who enable the fraud. We want those people to suffer the consequences. So here's a very simple thing is the threat to the Medicaid program. I always think some of these political partisan types get this exactly backwards. The threat to the Medicaid program is not us keeping fraudsters away from the Medicaid program. It's the fraudsters raiding that program to begin with. That's the threat to the Medicaid program. And so what I'd say to anybody who's worried about the Medicaid program, help us fight back against the fraud, because we want low-income people in this state to be able to get the health care benefits they need. But that's not going to happen if the fraudsters steal all the money that should go to the people who actually need it.
Seamus Othot with the. All right, so that was your Vice President, J.D. Vance, basically saying, hey, man, they're most definitely cracking down on the whole situation with the fraud, guys. All right, so let's switch gears into something else. I've been keeping an eye on these 13 missing scientists, guys. And I just be baffled of how all of them could just go missing or be unalive, under such crazy circumstances. And they just disappeared, guys. What happened to these scientists? Your guess is as good as mine. But breaking news, the number has grown, guys. There are more missing scientists as of today. Check this out.
Denied. The FBI probing space scientists either dead or missing. And at this hour, the toll has risen to 16.
16.
Good evening.
Guys.
I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
16. The number is now 16, guys. 16 missing scientists. What is going on, man? I've heard everything from aliens to our government to Iran to, just crazy. But one thing about it is, man, what has happened to these missing scientists.
He left his wallet behind, he left his phone behind, and then he drove his Tesla to the Huntsville airport. And then randomly, for no reason that we can figure out, crashed his Tesla directly into a guardrail, and the body inside of it was unrecognizable.
Tonight, the toll rising to 16. 16 space scientists either dead or missing.
The 17th American scientist. Her name is Ingrid Colleen Lane, and she went missing on a solo hike in New Mexico. She vanished on State Route 144. Her black 2019 Subaru was found 9,100 feet in elevation and out of cell range. The sheriff's department said that a large boulder rock crashed through the rear hatch window. The front bumper of the car showed significant collision damage that has never been accounted for in any official report. 3 laptops were inside, an unactivated burner phone, and her keys were still in the ignition.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Now I'm hearing that a female space scientist died after a boulder fell on her car. What's the odds of that happening? That's from a friend I found on Insta, Mary C2HK. But what I don't get, straight out to Lauren Conlon joining us, investigative reporter with the Los Angeles LA Magazine, star of Pop Crime TV, co-host. You can find her at Pop Crime TV. Lauren, why did I have to find that buried amongst all sorts of outlandish theories regarding these missing scientists and dead scientists? Is any of that true? Who is Ingrid Lane?
What is going on with these scientists, guys? 16 missing U.S. scientists. The number has grown. It started at 10. Last time I seen it was 13. Now it's at 16 missing U.S. scientists, guys. What is going on?
And is it true she has disappeared, but her car is found with a boulder attack?
Yes. So as far as we know, Nancy, she is still alive. She is just missing. Ingrid Lane, she was a beautiful musician. She played the violin, but she was also a neuroscientist and a bioengineer affiliated with the Mind Research Network at the University of New Mexico. Now, this place, the Mind Research Network, it had ties to Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. So that is where this very, very striking connection comes in. The way that Ingrid disappeared is so chilling, Nancy. She was actually...
If she went off and left her cell phone and purse and just disappeared, then it gotta be something, because that's exactly what the other ones did. But let's see.
Retreat that she was supposed to be on a week-long retreat at a place called the Bodhi Manda Zen Center. And according to reports and friends and family, she was very familiar with this place. She had been going there, I guess, on and off for about 10 years. It was about an hour from where she lived in the Albuquerque area. So she's there for one day. The very next day, she tells people that she's going for a drive. She's got to go back to Albuquerque. She's got to go back to Los Alamos. She wants to hike over there and she'll be back later. Now, this struck a few people as odd because it's like you're going on a Zen retreat, but now you want to drive a bunch of hours, even though you're supposed to be meditating. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. So she's driving along State Route 144 near the San Antonio Mountain and the Valles Caladra National Preserve. She is going up and up and up to the top of this mountain. Now, 2 people find her because she is having car trouble. And they ask her, do you need some help? And she says, I'm fine. I will fix my car. They said she seemed very determined to get to the top of this mountain. So according to these 2 people, they walk along and she continues. Now,
she was persistent to get to the top of the mountain just to go missing, man. It got to be something more to these cases of these missing scientists, guys. Not to mention that most of them were into the aero technology type, space type. It's crazy. This is wild, guys.
Later, as you mentioned, her car was found after there was an Apple AirTag that police tracked when she was reported missing. Now, there was a large boulder that had shattered near the rear hatch window of her Subaru, and the front showed reportedly major front end collision damage. We don't really have an explanation about that, but 3 laptops found inside that car, Nancy, an unactivated burner phone, and her keys were still in the ignition.
A burner
Let me
phone.
understand. How can a boulder hit the front end and the back end?
Well, we don't know that it was a boulder, right? Like nobody was there. There's no cameras. So this is what is being reported, I'm assuming, based on what law enforcement observed. One thing I want to point out that I thought was a little weird is that she went missing in 2023. She wasn't in the NamUs database until late 2024. I mean, maybe that's a question that, I can't answer. Maybe you can answer. Or Brian, why does that happen? Why did it take so long?
You're stating she was not in what database, Lauren Conlon?
The NamUs database, the government missing persons database.
Guys, Lauren is saying NAMUS. NamUs is the way it's pronounced, and it is a missing person database, and she was only placed in there how long after she went missing?
About, I want to say more than a year. Yeah.
And again, Lauren Conlon, what was her field of study?
She was a bio engineer and a neuroscientist. She was brilliant, Nancy. I mean, her name, I was just looking this up. Her name is connected to multiple reports pertaining to the U.S. Department of Energy. And this is from the Sandia National Laboratory Center for Computing Research. So, you can find a lot about where she worked and what she did online. And I went through this deep dive of Ingrid. I just got so involved. And I found an article that she wrote back in 2012, kind of like an op-ed, where she really was already questioning authority at that point. And she was reportedly fighting for LGBTQ rights at her workplace, which wasn't necessarily going over too well. And this is according to friends. So she was struggling.
What's the strongest possibility of what could be going on with these scientists, guys? Do y'all think it's us trying to protect the technology we have from getting into the wrong hands? Do y'all think that it's another country trying to get the technology that we got? Or is this all just a coincidence, guys, that the number has now jumped to 16 missing scientists?
A bit at the time of her disappearance.
Straight out to special guest joining us, Frank Milburn. We are talking about yet another scientist missing or dead. In this case, Ingrid Lane. Do you know what let me introduce Frank Milburn, everyone. Frank, as you may know by now, former British intelligence officer, very dear friend of Amy Eskridge, another brilliant scientist who made it a point to tell Frank repeatedly, if I'm found dead, I did not commit suicide, no matter what anybody tells you. Yet, it's reported that she died of self-inflicted gunshot wound. And I'd like to point out that no official autopsy has ever been released, ever. And we've compiled a list of other scientists found dead with, amazingly, no COD. In fact, one of them is reported dead because he was overweight and must have had a heart attack. That's not cutting it.
This is most definitely strange, guys.
What I'm hearing about Ingrid Lane is an eerie echo of what is being said about the brilliant scientist, Miss Eskridge. Her father, a brilliant scientist, both of them working in anti-gravity jet propulsion. That said, they're being smeared. All of the comments that have been made about Amy. Well, as to Ingrid, she's being described as a Buddhist musician struggling with her health. She's so much more than that. She is a brilliant scientist. And I see what's happening with these victims. They are being discredited. And it's very hard for me to understand how Ingrid Lane can just disappear from a boulder attack on her car. It's just not computing ideal and hard facts. Every case I've ever prosecuted or investigated either rises or falls on the facts, not innuendo and speculation about the victim's private life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fundamental problem with these, victims, and I will call them victims, because they are being discredited in this way. And for example, I've continued my investigations, and Amy made allegations of corporate espionage against 2 different organizations and individuals.
Now, y'all got to admit, for her to send out those text messages saying that she would never unalive herself, and then she winds up unalive, and they're trying to say she did it to herself. It just don't make sense when she said that, hey, I would never do that. And if something happens to me and it's this way, I didn't do it. This whole situation is just strange. They leave the house and leave their identification at home. It's almost like somebody is telling them to come meet them and then unaliving them when they get there.
Into those, and she was both threatened over that from those sources before her death, harassed, discredited, and also since her death, both she and I, there have been efforts made against from those same sources, to discredit her and to discredit myself for trying to push this investigation. So unfortunately, that's a problem, and where you have very, very brilliant people who have these kinds of very strange and suspicious circumstances around them, and you will have people trying to discredit them, and that is to their discredit themselves, not the victims.
Guys, tonight the toll of missing and or dead space scientists has risen to 16. Now, I want to talk about Ingrid for one moment. This description of her as a Buddhist musician struggling. No, she was also a bioengineer, a neuroscientist with the Mind Research Lab at University of New Mexico. Also worked at or with Sandia and other labs, Los Alamos Labs in particular. Her husband, an astrophysicist with the Department of Defense. He builds directed energy weapon software for the Air Force at Kirkland AFB. He is
energy weapons, the same kind that lady who we were just talking about said she got hit with. It's supposed to emit microwaves, guys. I never even knew it was a such thing as high power energy weapons until I started following what's going on with these scientists.
Published multiple research papers about Earth-like planets near other stars. But yet, she is being painted as a crackpot. Lauren Conlon, I've been researching Ingrid, as have you, and all of the every description is discrediting her brilliant mind and her advances in science. She's being written off as a crackpot, much like Amy Eskridge. But Amy Eskridge, isn't this true, Frank Milbert, had some of the highest government security clearance that can be had. She was
some
working
of
with
the highest, guys. Y'all better listen.
She was also, I can't comment on her clearances because I didn't discuss those with her, whether she had them, whether she didn't, but she was interested in working on some very, very interesting cases and technologies. She was working with Homeland Security, yes. And just the fact that she had a kind of string of people who worked on high level.
This lady was working with Homeland Security, guys. Yeah, but they tried to paint her crazy once she started speaking out about what was going on.
UFO programs who were visiting her home, scientists and others. So she was very much in that field.
Brian Fitzgibbons is joining us, and everyone on the panel that hasn't been introduced yet tonight, please jump in when you have a thought. Brian Fitzgibbons is with us, the Director of Operations, USPA Nationwide Security. He leads a team of investigators around the world finding missing people. He is a former Marine and an Iraqi war vet. Brian, here's another tidbit, a fact that just doesn't fall into place with me regarding Ingrid Lane. She went to a Zen center for a few days. Zen center, get it? Zen, chill. Her mind, brilliant, and this was a break for her, but yet suddenly she announced she had to leave by car in her black Subaru. Then it's found on about 11 miles north, I believe, New Mexico 126. Now, here's the thing. She's gone, but her car barely survived a boulder attack?
What is going on with
How could
these
she
scientists,
vanish
guys?
near the mountains? How can that happen? Wouldn't cadaver dogs, drones, someone, something have found her? There's her car. Where is she? She had a burner phone. Why? Why did she suddenly leave her Zen retreat by car? Why? Her husband doesn't know why. Help me out, Fitz, because this isn't fitting together. And now she's being described, this astrophysicist, as a crackpot.
What triggered that need
crazy,
to
yeah.
leave this retreat center so urgently? And when you add in the totality of the facts surrounding this case, you brought up...
Yes, a boulder. They saying that a boulder fell off a cliff, or off a boulder fell on top of her car and hit the front and the back. And Nancy was questioning, how can a boulder fall and hit the front and the back of the car? So her death is suspicious, guys, to Nancy.
Maybe the most prescient point, Nancy. You and I together have covered so many cases of missing hikers. And a search and rescue effort is very efficient at finding somebody, especially when there are marked trails, known routes, a retreat center nearby. If there was some kind of medical emergency that Ingrid suffered, search and rescue effort would find her relatively quickly. So to add in this burner phone, what appears to be potentially a staging of a secondary crime scene at the vehicle, there are a number of red flags here.
I want to go back to Lauren Conlon. Lauren Conlon, everyone, investigative reporter. You've seen her joining us many, many times on Crime Stories. She is a contributor at LA Magazine and has just written an incredible article about the missing NASA scientist, Monica Reza. And the reason I want to bring that up is not just because of your article, which is amazing, Lauren Conlon, but Monica's disappearance, in my mind, is eerily similar to some of the other disappearances. Tell me what you learned about Monica.
Yes, well, I was just going to say this, Nancy. Between Monica and Ingrid, I'm seeing some similarities that are very chilling. There was a red beanie of Monica's that was found. And after this red beanie was found, and again, just for those that don't know, she went missing in June of 2025 when she was hiking in the Mount Waterman area of the Los Angeles Mountains in California. It's 100,000 or hundreds of thousands of acres, this entire area. But her area, we do know her last known coordinates, which is where law enforcement and family and friends have been searching for the last year. So she left, that red beanie that you saw on that photo, that was found. Now,
Right
Monica's scent stopped after that beanie was found. That is very concerning. If she were to keep going on, let's say she
Her
got
scent
lost,
just
right?
mysteriously
Why
stopped,
would her
guys.
scent stop there? Same with Ingrid. Reportedly, there was forensic evidence indicating that Ingrid had been outside or near her vehicle, but there was no trace showing where she went after. Search dogs reportedly found no scent trail leading away from the scene. That, to me, makes no sense. And I have to wonder, without being a conspiracy theorist, were these staged somehow? And with Monica, I have spoken to close family members who are desperate to find their sister, their mother, their cousin. Monica is a widow. They wanted everyone to know that she was not working for any type of foreign government, any foreign intelligence. She was studying yoga with a specialty in Vedic sciences. And she had done this for about 30 years, and she was working for NASA JPL at the time. One last thing I want to say about Monica, Nancy, is the fact that she had an iPhone 8, which meant that her cell phone was not going to ping anywhere unless she was at a proper place in the mountain for it to work. If she would have had an iPhone 12, it could have pinged. But this is one of the most baffling things ever, again, because she was with two people, two companions, and they both seem to have a very specific story. And as far as I know, Nancy, no one else can put Monica on the mountain that day except for these two people. I have not spoken to them personally. I have reached out to one of them, but I have a lot of questions.
Lauren Conlon, isn't it true that Monica Jacinta Reza got her
Yes, she got a
funding
lot of
from
questions, guys.
AFRL, Air Force Research Lab, and she worked closely with, and her funding was approved by William Neal McCasland, who walked away from his home with none of his ID, without his phone, without anything on him to identify who he was except an Air Force sweatshirt, which was found discarded about 2 miles away. McCasland oversaw Monica Jacinto-Reza's projects and okayed the funding for her. Isn't that true?
They did overlap. And
The missing general,
I've
guys.
reached out to these places like Wright-Patterson, the Air Force Research Lab. And I think I mentioned this to you. It's very difficult to get confirmation of what people did exactly and the years that they worked there. So I'm going off of LinkedIn for these two in general. But yes, Monica Reza, she co-patented these high-strength metal alloys, burn-resistant alloys, and General McCasland was at the very top. So this, to me, like, they are the center of all of this. I really believe they are. And one other thing that's so concerning about Monica Reza, when I spoke to her family last week, no one from the FBI or the White House had reached out to her. And I know that doesn't mean they're not looking into this. I know that maybe family doesn't know exactly what she was working on. I just thought that was very strange in terms of profiling.
She was working on a particular alloy to be used on rockets and other aircraft that was resistant to high degrees of heat. And the name is Mondelloy. She was perfecting the use of Mondelloy on rocket ships and other craft. So as part of her research, suddenly she goes missing. And I want to address what you just said, Lauren Conlon. With Brian Fitzgibbons, here's an example everybody can understand. And I was shocked when I first heard it. This was during the Scott Peterson murder investigation, where Lacey and Connor were murdered by Scott Peterson. Do you know a scent dog tracked Lacey from Modesto all the way to the San Francisco Bay? The dog tracked her that far, and she was in a vehicle, probably in the back of a boat with a tarp over it. Tracked her all the way in a vehicle. So why is it that Ingrid Lane and Monica Jacinto-Reza just disappear and leave behind no identifiable scent for either a scent dog or a cadaver dog?
Yeah, that's perplexing. I mean, as you know, and you pointed out with the Peterson case, and there are so many other examples. U.S. Marshals just tracked down a fugitive in Naples just today using scent dogs. This is through thick brush, wetlands. It's amazing what these dogs can do.
Summertime.
So the number has
expensive,
jumped to 16,
but
guys. 16 missing U.S. scientists. Where did they go?
Things out there found.
Where did they go?
Good luck.
It's crazy.
About the beanie, it's the only thing found. The big one comes down to the canines. They took canine teams out there, scent trackers. They tracked the scent to the beanie, and there was no scent trail leading away from the beanie. Right?
Yeah.
If she continued in that direction, the dogs would have continued. The beanie is at the location where the only witness saw her disappear. The only witness produced the two photos. And the beanie is at that location as well. At the investigative angle, at the investigative side, you have to look into this as possible foul play and possible staging of an event.
You are hearing well-known geoprofiler Doug McGregor answering questions for Lauren Conlon at LA Magazine, describing what is a forensic quandary, a conundrum, a Rubik's Cube, so to speak. Because in our world of hard evidence, a scent doesn't just disappear unless that person maybe was put in a vehicle and the dog loses the scent. But that doesn't make sense as far as Monica Jacinto-Reza's disappearance. She was on the side of a mountain. She wasn't picked up in a vehicle. Ingrid Lane was in the middle of rugged terrain. Her car sitting right there, disabled by a boulder attack? No. And a mystery burner phone left in her vehicle?
Nancy says
No.
a boulder attack.
Guys, I told you that the toll is now up to 14, and you have been hearing Lauren Collin, who has been intensely researching the disappearance of Monica Reza as well as Ingrid Lane. But there is another name that has emerged. Kevin Childress. Kevin Childress was found dead unexpectedly. And I'm going to go to Dave Mack shortly about how many of these scientists are dead, but there's no medical examiner's report and there's no official cause of death. How can that be? Even when my step-grandfather passed away of a heart attack in the home with my grandma there, they did an autopsy to determine what really happened. He was 88 years old. They did an autopsy, and it was a heart attack. Why no autopsies and no official CODs? That's a whole nother can of worms, but I want to get back to Kevin Childress. Joining me now is Lou Elizondo, former U.S. Army Counterintelligence Special Agent, former employee, Office Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, former Director, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
Yeah, I just think this is
and
past
whistleblower.
strange, you guys. Past strange.
Wow. Mr. Elizondo, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. You have refused in the past to give me the name Kevin Childress, but I found it elsewhere. Kevin Childress, and correct me if I am wrong, was set to have a meeting describing very, very sensitive scientific information. He was going to Congress and talking about what was in the UAP files. And then suddenly he's found dead on a sofa. And there was never an autopsy. What can you tell me about Kevin Childress other than he was brilliant? That much I already know.
Sure. Well, Nancy, thank you very much for having me. It's certainly an honor and privilege. You're absolutely correct. Kevin Childress was a senior special agent with the Department of Energy. And as you continue to look at some of these other cases, there are definitely ties. When you're talking about a national laboratory, there are always ties with the Department of Energy. And so in this particular case, Special Agent Kevin Childress was the special agent in charge. He was there at headquarters at the Department of Energy. And he had reached out to me. This is right after I left the Pentagon. And he was very concerned. He said, look, the Department of Energy has a significant role in the UAP business. And I'm pretty upset by what I have access to. And now that I've raised it through my chain of command, I feel that the Department of Energy is trying to keep me quiet. So I'm worried about that. But there's a lot of information, this is what he's saying, that I have access to, and I would love a chance to talk to somebody in Congress about it. So I was in the process of arranging a meeting between Special Agent Kevin Childress and some members of Congress back in the 2020-2021 timeframe. And to spare the family, they want to be cognizant of their privacy. Let's just say his spouse is extremely well trained in the medical field. And I think it was a surprise to everybody. She had left for work that morning. He seemed fine. She came home that evening and he was dead on the sofa. And clearly I had some surprise as well when I heard this news. But if you look at his obituary, which I find very interesting, specifically one of the last paragraphs, it talks about his interest in the UAP topic. And that's actually what was the basis for our conversation we were going to have in Congress. I was going to bring him there as a whistleblower and allow him to speak his piece.
Can we identify that, please?
Wow, he was going as a whistleblower, guy.
Aerial phenomena. That's what we're talking about, UAP.
That's correct.
Unidentified.
It sounds very
Aerial
conspiratorial.
phenomena.
But the reality is that our government has spent a lot of time, a lot of resources looking into the topic of UAP or what was known in the vernacular as UFOs in the past. And of course, people like to snicker and giggle about it, but the reality is we took it very seriously. And we spent a lot of money, taxpayer money, looking into this because we had, in some cases, almost mid-air collisions between a UAP or a UFO, if you want to call it that, and military aircraft. We also saw these things over controlled U.S. airspace, over sensitive military installations, over nuclear facilities. And this is why Department of Energy is so important here, because the nuclear tie it may be actually something that we need to look at. All these scientists that have disappeared
The
in one way,
nuclear tie. Hold on. You know what? Pardon the pun, but you're light speed ahead of us regular people. What do you mean the nuclear tie?
So one of the things that we noticed while in the Pentagon running the UFO program was that these UAP or these UFOs have an interest in our nuclear equities, whether it's nuclear propulsion, nuclear power, and nuclear weapon systems. And what a lot of people don't know is that the Department of Energy plays a significant role. When anything that is considered radioactive or has a certain yield, Department of Energy has primacy. And so in this particular case, you have a lot of scientists writ large, not just Kevin Childress, who was the special agent, that were working at these national laboratories under the Department of Energy cognizance. And a lot of the work that they were doing could be related to some sort of Department of Energy project. Now, I want to be very careful here because certainly I don't want to talk about anything that's classified, but as one of your participants here mentioned, these individuals had security clearances, in some cases top secret SCI security clearances, as high as it gets. And that's the reason why you have FBI now involvement in investigating these, what we call national level cases. But there are other individuals, and I'm sure our friend here, Frank Milburn, can tell you, Amy Eskridge was no different. I had the opportunity to speak with her in person in 2018 timeframe in the Huntsville, Alabama area, Redstone Missile Arsenal, where she had indicated to me that she was working on an anti-gravitic technology, her and her father, and that that research was being suppressed. And I know this sounds very conspiratorial, but I was there for the meeting. It was actually over dinner. And all I'm telling you is what she told me. And she said that they're being harassed and that she's very, very afraid that there are certain elements that are trying to, quote unquote, shut them down.
And it seems very real now, guys, seeing that she's unalive. Then she wrote those messages saying that people were basically, if anything would have happened to her, she didn't do it herself. And before that, she had been reporting threats and things of that nature. This is wild.
And yeah, she told me that verbatim. And then, of course, unfortunately, she wound up dying, passing away. And General McCaslin, the same thing. A lot of people don't realize Neil McCaslin, who we talked about, AFRL, Air Force Research Laboratory, and some of these other national laboratories, he was a linchpin to a lot of the military's black projects. Basically, they're working on technologies that, in theory, we won't see for another 50 years. And McCaslin, what a lot of people don't know, is that he was also an advisor to one of my colleagues, Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge is the former frontman and current frontman, I think, again, for the Blink-182 rock band. And as crazy as this sounds, Tom had an interest in the UAP topic, UFO topic, and General McCaslin, Neil McCaslin, I know as a fact because I worked with Tom, was one of his advisors on the UFO topic. And so I want to be very careful here not to sound conspiratorial or draw any lines that aren't there. But a lot of these individuals that are on this list actually had some sort of involvement in either advanced propulsion, advanced types of materials and alloys, or specifically UAP research.
Everybody working on aerospace
tape.
technology, guys. It's crazy.
So I don't doubt the fact that he was in some way, shape, or form being intimidated, and they were trying to suppress his communications. When I say they, I don't know who they are. I don't know if it was government sponsored or if it was someone else. But I can tell you in my conversations with him, and of course,
the total number of missing scientists is now at 16, guys.
Amy Eskridge, and then later on with Neil McCaslin, all of these individuals had a very keen interest in the UFO topic, and that for me is obviously very concerning.
Died of COVID, yet no one seems to be able to confirm he had COVID. and no COD, cause of death, is listed in the obituary. Kevin Childress, who was concerned that he was being treated as a whistleblower and was set to talk to a member of Congress, then dies on the sofa. No COD. I'm also very curious about Matthew Sullivan, aka Quake. Is it true, or
Make
do
sure
you
you
know
guys are double tapping that
whether
screen. Hit the
an
like button.
autopsy was ever performed on Sullivan and what was said to be his cause of death?
Yeah, so rather than share what I don't know, let me share with you what I do know. He was an Air Force intelligence officer. He was a colleague of one of my colleagues at the time, Dave Grush. Dave Grush and I had worked at U.S. Space Force together. And Sullivan wanted to come forward and have a conversation with certain members of Congress about the Air Force's involvement in the UFO program. And he was slated within, I think, 24 hours. He had gone to Washington, D.C. and was in a hotel, from my understanding, and was going to have a conversation with some members of Congress in a SCIF. A SCIF is a sensitive compartmented information facility. So it's kind of like think of a secret vault where you can have conversations at the classified level. And the day before he was supposed to have a conversation, or 2 days before, he wound up being found dead. I knew, what I do know is that there was a while before the medical examiner even released a report. It kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. I don't know the reason why it was delayed, but I do know that members of Congress were very concerned the fact that this individual was supposed to testify and wound up dead. And by the way, this wasn't the only one. There was another individual whose name I won't mention because it hasn't been made public yet, but he was an individual, an engineer, who was allegedly tied to the exploitation of recovered UFO material.
So there's another name that hasn't been released yet, guys. What is going on with these scientists?
He was he was talking to one of my colleagues, and he was going to go talk to Congress about his knowledge about legacy U.S. government legacy UFO efforts. And within, I think, a week or so before he was supposed to go to Washington, D.C., he wound up dying. And the cause of death, I don't know, but one of my colleagues was following it very closely and was concerned enough to tell me, hey, look, people are starting to disappear. You may want to be very careful. So there does seem to be a very interesting, you can call it a coincidence, but in my line of work as a former intelligence officer, when things happen once, it's an anomaly. When things happen twice, you could chalk it up as a coincidence. But when it happens 3 times, now you have a trend. Now you have a connection there. And there does seem to be some very interesting connection here. Now, I also have to preface, as a former intelligence officer myself, it is not as uncommon as you might think that foreign countries will sometimes take very extreme measures to keep information quiet. We're now beginning to see that there are several scientists now in China that are missing.
There are scientists everywhere that are missing, guys. All around the time they get ready to release these UFO files. Trump them just released the UFO files, guys. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And there may be reasons for that, and same with Russia. So we need to do a lot of work on this. But, if I may, Nancy, digress for just one moment, because you had a very interesting picture there of a vehicle that was allegedly hit by a boulder. And this was the female scientist who went up and wound up disappearing. And
Ingrid Lane.
Yeah, let's take a look at this photo, for example, just for a moment. What I find very interesting as a former special agent myself is that if a boulder hit this, I don't see any real damage to the top of the vehicle. What I see is damage into the back of the window, as if someone tried to do some sort of smash and grab, and maybe some minor damage below that on the trunk area. But what I don't see is anything that looks like a large boulder had come raining down from a cliff and smashed the back part of the vehicle there. And now maybe they were able to recover a rock or something, but that really does not look consistent to me as a giant boulder coming down from a hill and smashing the vehicle. One would expect to have much, much more damage to that vehicle if that was a case.
That is an incredible observation. It's right under our noses, but we didn't see it. That's why you are the former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent. I want to defend Matthew Sullivan because I feel that he, along with Amy Eskridge, along with Ingrid and others, is being painted in a, let me just say, a bad light. Matthew Sullivan earned a Bronze Star for valor in Operation Enduring Freedom. He worked for the Air Force Intelligence Agency, the National Air and Space Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency.
Man, he's the craziest one of all because he was a whistleblower. He was going to go testify in front of Congress, guys, and then all of a sudden, it's come up missing.
It was stated by Major General David Abba that Sullivan held the, quote, burden a select few in this nation have of truly understanding what is going on in the field of jet propulsion, anti-gravity, UFO information. He had the highest recommendations, yet let me understand how Matthew died. Matthew died just before he was set to speak to members of Congress, alone in a hotel room. To you, Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter.
Alone in a hotel room right before he was supposed to testify in front of Congress. Could it be that somebody shut him up, guys?
What were the circumstances surrounding his death? What did they say he had ingested?
Nancy, they said that this Air Force veteran, Bronze Star recipient, Matthew James Sullivan, at the age of 39, died from a lethal mix of alcohol, alprazolam, cyclobenzaprine. We've got alcohol, Xanax, a muscle relaxer, and a bedwetting that is medication. That's what it is reported.
For children.
Yes, for children, yes. That he overdosed accidentally on those medications.
You know, there was no autopsy
Somebody made him
there
a cocktail.
as well. And when I've circled back to Kevin Childress, Dave Mack, isn't it true regarding Kevin Childress that no autopsy was performed and his death was chalked off to a heart attack because he was obese mixed with COVID?
Yes, that, believe it or not, that is what was said by the medical examiner without doing an autopsy. Nancy, one thing to go back very quickly on Matthew Sullivan.
No autopsy.
None. Representative Eric Burleson, Nancy, he's a congressman from Missouri who serves on a House Oversight Committee task force that on the declassification of federal secrets. They were so shocked in his office at the death of Matthew Sullivan that Congressman Burleson reached out to the FBI and asked for them to do an investigation due to the timing of Sullivan's death.
Crazy, guys. It's crazy.
Hi, guys.
But I think it's beyond a coincidence, guys. I think that something is most definitely going on
was
with these scientists, guys.
Just literally
Crash
Just in my opinion.
part of a legacy UFO program, the U.S. government crash retrieval program. He was part of the U.S. government's crash retrieval program. Lou Elizondo, what is that? The crash retrieval program.
Wow. Well, first of all, Nancy, it's a great question, and it's a question that I'm not allowed to answer. Let me just
You're not allowed.
say this. I still maintain a security clearance with the United States government, and there are certain prohibitions that I have been told, and I've had to literally sign my name on a piece of paper saying that I would not discuss details about certain topics of XYZ. The notion of crash retrievals, unfortunately, is one of them. It is still considered very sensitive in the U.S. government, and unfortunately, I cannot confirm nor deny or elaborate very much at all on that topic. But what I can say is what you're saying was absolutely what was communicated as well to Congress, that Mr. Sullivan here had some sort of affiliation with legacy efforts and potentially reverse engineering.
The UFO crash retrieval operation, dubbed the Legacy Program. That's what we're talking about. And
Undisclosed
Shepard
agreement. Let's
was
go.
into it up to his eyeballs. Before we go to special guest Frank Milburn to tie this all together with the suspicious death of his friend Amy Eskridge, to Dr. Kendall Crowns is joining us. He is the chief medical examiner in Tarrant County, that's Fort Worth. He is an esteemed lecturer at the Burnett School of Medicine at TCU. He's a star of a hit podcast, Mayhem in the Morgue, his lighter side. Dr. Kendall Crowns, how is it someone can be pronounced dead via heart attack? Because they're fat, because they're overweight, they just died of a heart attack with no toxicology, no autopsy, no medical examiner sign off, nothing? Who said heart attack?
So it depends on the jurisdiction. Some medical examiner offices or coroner's offices will actually sign cases out over the phone with a medical history, known complications like morbid obesity. If they are known to have heart disease, they'll use that to make the decision of calling it atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or a heart attack over the phone. Now, it just depends on the jurisdiction.
Put him up,
like
please.
in Tarrant
Put him up.
County,
This is LA. Are you telling me this is like Teladoc? They get some information over the phone. They go, okay, yeah, write it off as heart attack.
so yes, in some jurisdictions they will do that, and they will base it on age, medical history, things of that nature. My problem is you have an individual who's too young. I mean, he's under 50, found dead. Just because he's overweight doesn't mean he necessarily had a heart attack. He should be evaluated and looked at to make sure he did have heart disease and did die from that and not something else like an overdose or something nefarious. But he should have been looked at. But again, it's jurisdictional. Some places the cutoff is 45 and they won't even look at him.
To Frank Milburn joining us, a very dear friend of scientist Amy Eskridge.
We looking at the case of the 16 missing scientists, my God.
Found dead. Milburn is a former British intelligence officer. He spoke with Amy just hours before her death. He does not believe she killed herself, and he is very familiar with technology on which she was working, as well as directed energy weapons reportedly used against her. Frank Milburn, after all you have heard tonight, including the names of 2 additional scientists missing and dead, how do you compare that to Amy's case? What do you think is happening?
Well, it literally makes the hair stand up on my neck, the hair that I do have. I think it's very concerning. I mean, any time that you have people who are effectively walking encyclopedias on these kind of technologies, whether it's exotic propulsion, nuclear, and who have worked for government departments on classified programs, then there's a counterintelligence red flag goes up, and these things need to be investigated. In Amy's case, I've continued my own investigations, and in the case of where she was accusing people of corporate espionage, documented and receiving harassment from people who themselves have, documented histories of legal problems because of, violence against women, and also making, violent threats against her and other people. So that's extremely concerning to me, and it's extremely concerning seeing these other scientists. I don't have the FBI, bird's eye view. But I'm hoping that they will investigate, all of these cases on their merits, individually, whether there's some kind of overarching conspiracy or not. And I hope so in the Amy Eskridge case that they also revisit the FBI investigation into her in 2022, because Amy said that she was speaking to the FBI for 3 months prior to her death in 2022, and then she was told by the FBI, and this is her words through me, saying she was told that the FBI don't have, quote, jurisdiction to investigate her case, which I find very, very worrying, because I had passed this information to the FBI via a third party, precisely because I saw this as a big counterintelligence red flag, given who she was, given who her father is, and given what they were both working on at the Institute for Exotic Science.
What goes through your mind when you hear about another and another scientist missing or dead, this time from a Boulder attack? the other because of a heart attack with no medical examiner's report. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with Lou, and being an old counterintelligence guy myself, like he was, I relate 100% to what he's saying, and he was spot on about the vehicle as well, the lack of vehicular damage, and it's extremely concerning. As I say, it's a counterintelligence red flag, or red flags.
Red flags in the plural.
Yes.
And finally, back to Lou Elizondo joining us, former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent, former director, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The reason I keep reading out your qualifications and Frank's qualifications and everyone on the panel tonight is because you, many of you, have been given top clearances by the U.S. government, as have these victims. They cannot be written off as crackpots the way that Ingrid was written off, the way that Amy is written off, trying to paint them as drug abusers. That did not happen. Matthew Sullivan did not have a drug problem, and he wasn't taking pills for child's bedwetting. I want to hear your thoughts, Lou. And I want to hear, you mentioned it, but you didn't go into it, about threats or harassment that you received.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct, Nancy. Myself and many of my colleagues have been subject to those harassment and threat campaigns. We've had our security clearances threatened. I hate to say it, but there's a reason why I live in the middle of nowhere with 5 German Shepherds and I'm heavily armed. The reality is that we've been told by several
for his life.
Some of them law enforcement, some of them even members of Congress, who said, hey, look, they are very upset with what you guys are doing. And you're putting a mark on yourself. Fortunately, in my case, I think because I have enough public persona that maybe it's a little more difficult to just do something and make it look like an accident. But look, governments are fully capable of doing this. And this is not conspiracy. People say, well, our government wouldn't do that. Well, if that's the case, I would encourage anybody to look up the term MK Ultra, where the CIA had administered LSD to unsuspecting civilians, resulting in the death of at least one. Look at things like the Tuskegee experiment, where we allowed human beings to be infected with syphilis and allowed syphilis to go to its conclusion, which ultimately is death, even though we had the antibiotics to protect these individuals. Just in the name of science, we allowed these individuals to die. So there's a long list of things that we have done that have not been very good or kind to our citizens in the past. I hope it's not the case that they would still be doing that, but I also know from personal experience that they are very capable of doing it. Now, also one thing too, you mentioned very interesting, when we look at intelligence, and Frank will tell you the same thing, in counterintelligence specifically, there are things we call tradecraft. It's kind of tools of the trade, how we do business. Or how we ask others, like sources, to do business. And this one individual, we keep going back to that car with the alleged boulder that broke into the back of it. The individual was found with a burner phone, if I'm correct. And a burner phone is very interesting because a burner phone is used when you want to communicate with somebody, but you want to do it in secret. You want to do it clandestinely, because a burner phone isn't necessarily assigned to you through one of the various carriers. A burner phone really doesn't have an identity. And so the question is, why was this top scientist carrying around with them a burner phone? Usually, again, burner phones are used to convey information that you don't want other people to know that you're conveying. Was this person going to be another whistleblower potentially? Was this person having a conversation already, perhaps with somebody in our government, or perhaps maybe even a journalist, right? We simply don't know. But the fact that the person was never found, the car is in the condition that it's in, they were found with a burner phone. These are all things to me that raise my eyebrow, and I'm hopeful that the FBI will continue to track this down. I think there's enough information there. Look, there's enough. If somebody wants to disappear now, today's day and age, it's very difficult. There's something we call digital exhaust. And anytime you log on to anything, whether it's an email account or a bank account or hospital records, you leave a little bit of electronic exhaust in your wake. And that can be found. Trained professionals within the U.S. Marshal Service, within FBI, they know how to track down individuals. So the fact that a lot of these people remain missing, for me, is even greater concern. Because it's as if they just disappeared. There's no evidence, there's no trace left behind, other than stuff that is, quite frankly, rather suspicious. So I think we have a right to ask the questions that we're asking, and it may turn out that this list that you are compiling may be considerably larger. And I hope that's not the case, but it is quite possible that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And if that's the case, then we're going to have a much more difficult conversation amongst ourselves.
Speaking of the burner phone, Lou, it is reminiscent of the missing mom, Melissa Cassius, who takes her daughter a Subway sandwich for lunch, then disappears. She left on foot, no cell phone, no wallet, no purse, no keys. But when her items were searched, the cell phone, personal and work phone, had both been factory reset before she went on a
why
walk.
would she reset her phone?
Interesting. She worked with Chavez at Los Alamos. Chavez also
Almost
missing.
as if
Now
she
we
knew she
have
wasn't coming back.
Ingrid Lane turning up missing with a burner phone. Her car disabled by a boulder attack, which, based on your observations, clearly did not happen. If you know or think you know anything regarding our missing and dead, no medical examiner report for COD, please dial toll-free 800-CALL-FBI. That's 800-225-5324. We remember American heroes.
All right, guys. So that's everything on the missing scientists. So basically the number has jumped to 16, guys. 16 missing scientists. If you have not, make sure that you double tap the screen of your mobile device to hit that like button, guys. It most definitely helps out the channel. That's why I keep on asking y'all to hit that like button, and most definitely subscribe to the channel if you are new, guys. We'll most definitely appreciate to have y'all over here. All right, so we looked at the situation that was going on with Trump in China, guys. President Xi issued a warning to Trump while he was still in China about supplying ammunitions or selling ammunitions to Taiwan, guys. Said he is not in favor of that, and basically Trump said if he didn't accomplish anything else by going to China, he accomplished a relationship. That's what he said. That's what he said. And the relationship with China is more important than anything. We most definitely covered that, guys. We also heard Trump talk about Iran and many more different topics aboard Air Force One, guys, where he was interviewed by reporters. He basically gave him a rundown on everything that's going on in the country, guys. We most definitely talked about that as well. And we talked about the missing scientists, guys. I pretty much covered everything that was. Oh yeah, I can't forget. We most definitely talked about J.D. Vance, guys, and his crackdown on fraud. He said, "Hey man, the government will most definitely be cracking down on fraud, guys." All right, so yeah, I covered everything in my title, guys. If you most definitely enjoyed this show, make sure you're double tapping that screen. That's how you do it, by double tapping the screen on your mobile device, man. I'm usually in here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn your notification bell to all so you don't miss a thing when everything news goes live, man. Most definitely be bringing you all the live, latest, and breaking news as it happens. So it ain't no telling when I might press this button. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss nothing. Yeah, already, man. And thank you back. You know what I'm saying? Thank you back. Trump got dog walked in China. Listen, MSNBC said Trump tucked his tail. All that noise he was talking in the beginning, when he was running for president, he didn't stand on any of that. when he went to China. That's what they said. But anyways, guys, if I don't see y'all before then, I most definitely catch y'all Monday at 9, guys. Make sure you pull up on me over here on Everything News. Most definitely enjoy the rest of your night. Shout out to anybody that sent a gift. Shout out to anybody that sent a super chat or a super sticker or even a cash app. Shout out to you if you donated to the channel, man. Shout out to my members. I most definitely appreciate each and every one of y'all, the new ones as well as the old ones. And most definitely shout out to my moderators, guys. I would most definitely like to say thank you to my moderators for keeping this chat running smooth. I know sometimes with all these different opinions running through this chat, it gets hard to keep it running straight, but y'all most definitely managed to do it. So I most definitely appreciate y'all. And with that being said, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night. Y'all already know how this go. Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I catch y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be safe. I'm gone.